Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by the City Council and GCTV 15. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Seeing none, in accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, subsection 20G, no person shall address the meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Can I get a roll call of members, please?
Yes. Councillor Golub notified us that she would not be able to attend tonight. Vice President Gwynn?
Here.
Councillor Disorder?
Here.
Councillor Bottomley?
Here?
Councillor Bullock?
No.
She's there.
Councillor Bullock?
I don't think they can hear us.
Councillor Bullock, can you hear me?
Can anyone who's participating remotely hear us?
Councillor Mayo, can you hear us? Okay. I will come back to, Councillor Bullock is attending remotely, but we believe she cannot hear us. I will come back to her. President Gilmore?
Here.
Councillor Lapierski?
I'm here.
Councillor Mayo?
We could hear him earlier, which is funny.
Great.
Again, he is attending remotely, but we don't believe he can hear us. I will come back. Councillor Healy?
Because they can
Here.
hear them. They can't hear us.
Councillor Elmer is attending remotely. Councillor Elmer, can you hear us? I will come back. Councillor Forgy is unable to attend tonight. Councillor Ricketts?
Present.
Councillor Toronzo?
I'm here.
Councillor Bullock, can you hear us? Councillor Bullock, can you hear us? Apparently, they cannot hear us. 1, 2, 3. There is a quorum physically present, Madam President.
Thank you. Is it possible that we're on mute? I see a little microphone in the corner of the screen there.
Is anyone hearing sound yet?
They're starting to figure it
No.
out.
I hear you.
Oh, that's good. Can we hear John Zahn?
Will, I heard you too.
I
can
have
hear.
Can you hear me?
no sound from John Zahn yet.
I can hear you, Mary Ann.
Okay, so we can all hear each other. The question is, can
The mic is.
we hear them and can they hear us?
Maybe we
Councilor-
just
They
have a
might-
party.
they haven't- they haven't turned
Councilor
their mic
Bullock?
on yet.
Councillor Bullock, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Kathy.
Like, have to have a phone with an echo.
I'm going to mute again. Hold on.
Lots of echo.
So, yeah, I know. So if I unmute myself as co-host, they can hear me.
So who's the Trust Invest Collaborative person, do you
Never seen
know?
That's my workplace, but I can't change my name. They don't allow you to change your name on the city Zoom, so someone else has to do it for me.
Susie, can you hear me? No? Anyone? Susie,
That was
can you
my
copy?
chair. He did see that I was saying something like that.
We're still getting a feedback.
We are still getting feedback.
Mary Ann, I can see you and Doug, but I can't see anyone else. Oh, hello.
I will.
Hi, Louise. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Now people are starting to appear. Good. I'm going to disappear,
Well, let's keep going with our meeting. Doesn't matter if everybody can.
but I will listen.
Is anything happening over there?
I think they're working on it. I just got a text message that there's an echo. They're working on it. They know that we can't hear them well, although we did hear Kathy when she popped. I heard something faintly.
Kathy, your microphone's on.
Well, it's far away from you.
I think there's going to be feedback. Okay, I'm going back on mute.
Is your mic on, Kathy?
So I have a mic here, and a mic here, and that's why all the feedback is happening.
Is the center one on?
It is not on.
If that one is on, maybe she'll be able to hear you through the mic that would encompass all of us.
Okay, so I'm gonna mute.
Kathy, we are not hearing anything about the meeting.
Nothing's
If the
happening.
meeting is happening, we're not hearing it.
So Counselor DeStorger has her hand raised. I think she has a suggestion.
Not a technical suggestion from me, however, I did just let them know that we can hear the banter that they're saying to each other.
Okay. Can anyone who's participating remotely hear me right
Joan is
now?
muted.
Log out of what? Okay.
I think what might need to happen because of the feedback is everyone might need to mute when John's on comes off.
Leave meeting.
No, that's not.
That's me. I'm muted. Yes. Should I leave?
Yeah, just leave the meeting for now.
Okay. I'm out.
Okay, can they hear you now?
Can anyone?
Anyone hear us now? Security participants record.
You're muted.
Can anyone hear us now?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
So I guess I'm running off of this.
Yeah, you're supposed to be running off of that. You can just keep track of things here.
So I can log back in?
You should be able to.
So
Just stay muted when you come in.
join with computer audio?
You can join with me, yeah. Now test again, I want to see something. You're muted. You're muted.
Should I be unmuted?
You stay muted.
Stay muted. Okay.
Can they hear you?
Can you still hear me, public? Yes? Okay.
Can we hear that?
So I'm in roll call. Counselor Mayo? Can you, he is indicating he is here. He is not unmuted. He's raising a hand. Counselor Elmer?
Here.
Thank you. Counselor Bullock?
Here.
Thank you. Madam President, you have quorum.
Thank you. All right, next we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and this is voluntary.
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the July 20th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes?
Second, Rick.
Need it first.
Seconded.
I have a motion to amend the minutes. For the roll call page, has precinct 1 listed as Ed Jarvis instead of Catherine Golub. And that's it.
Thank you. Do I
Point
need a
point of
second
order.
on his?
Point of order.
Yes.
I am hearing an echo coming from over there. Is there anything we can do about that?
Right now, I can hear the folks that are participating remotely, and I'm prioritizing that. I can hear it too, and it's annoying, but I want to be able to hear them, and I want them to hear us.
That's fine. Why can't you turn the volume down on the machine that's producing it?
So I just did. Can the public still hear us speaking?
Barely.
Barely.
I think the volume might have to come up, and we might just have to deal with it.
That sounds good.
Is that better?
Yep.
Great. All right, folks that are in the room, please remember to have your microphones on when we speak. As always, but especially tonight. Yes, we need a second on Councilor Toronzo's motion to amend the minutes.
Second, Disorder.
Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, we'll get a vote on the amendment. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're voting on the minutes as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, it passes. All right, next we have communications from superintendent of schools and school committee. We did receive an email update today. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review it yet, but that is in lieu of their attendance this evening. And then communications from mayor, city officers, and employees. Tonight we have, so the mayor will not be joining us, but then communication from other city employees is needed by invitation. First, we have our IT director, Fernando Fleury. While we're waiting on him, it does say in the agenda that Chief Strand is going to be here for the fire department. He's on vacation this week, so he won't be able to join us. He is expecting to have more information for us in September. So I told him it would be fine to just wait on the update until then.
Hello, everyone. I asked Director Ring to come here too. This is a hybrid production.
That'd be great.
Hi, I'm Nick Ring with GCTV. I was doing a little troubleshooting as we were going. So we're having some interesting issues. We were all excited to talk about how well everything was going, and we tested things before the meeting, and here we are trying to figure out issues. So yay.
So I'll open it up to you and begin with questions for us.
Yes, is there anybody who has any questions? Okay, Councilor DeSorger?
I'll start. Thank you first both for coming. We know it's at the end of your day, so I'm very grateful for that. So I'm not the IT specialist here in the room. Is there anything that we can do or to help on either end of this to make it just work a little bit more seamlessly? It seems like maybe it's one recognizing the other. That's what I heard. But is one system doesn't recognize the other? Do you think that's the issue, or? Because this is really good for the people at home and for people who are, either sick or can't leave their homes. This is a great way to do it, and we're really, really close.
No, thank you for offering that. There's not really anything you can do with it. As we have more experience with the equipment and the operation of it, we have been fixing some things. You may not see them, replace some of the equipment, made some adjustments. But like what happened today is kind of baffling. I felt like, I don't know, whenever I go to the mechanic with my car, I'm having an issue, and then I show up and it works fine. And I remember the last time we had this problem, we came back the next day and we couldn't replicate it. Everything worked fine. So the ghost in the machine, maybe, I don't know. But we're looking at everything and trying to figure it out.
I think one interesting thing is that we're having pretty good success on not repeating problems. So like at one meeting, a problem will come up. We'll troubleshoot that and think, okay, we've got that working, we're good. And the next event happens and a new thing has happened. So for instance, just to highlight what happened at the last meeting, part of it is figuring out where in the whole system things are not working where they should. And so it truly is a hybrid process. And weird things are happening now even as we talk. So for instance, there was a meeting where there was a Zoom problem. They rectified that issue because that's outside of my expertise. And then the next meeting we had an issue where we were having audio dropouts, but we determined that those dropouts weren't happening on the Zoom side. They were only happening on our transmission side. And so we solved that with the classic turn it off and turn it on again technique. And that problem has not reoccurred. So what we're experiencing today, I think, are two different problems that are also both new problems.
Yes, Vice President Nguyen.
I just want to thank you for both being here. I spoke very strongly at the last meeting that I wanted some kind of hour, the first hour to have someone here for the next few meetings to work this out for exactly what happened tonight, which was we had someone that is a professional that could figure this out, and I wasn't looking to point out anything other than when no one is here, then it's being delegated to someone that's not their expertise. So I appreciate you working that out. I appreciate the mayor's office or whoever got it to happen. This is what we needed, and this was a great example. I'm glad you were here. If not, we would still be yelling, "Can you hear us?" like a bad Verizon commercial. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I had Councilor Lapinski next.
To date, how much money has the city spent on hybrid technology for meetings? At this location and all the locations?
About $40,000.
As technology goes, that seems like a relatively low figure to me.
It is. We had a system in place before, and we used all the equipment that we could use.
I see.
So we kept it. Tried to do the best we could with what we have. And then the mayor authorized me $35,000 to put into making it hybrid. So yeah, it actually, I think we had bang for the buck is pretty good. We just have to figure out some of these things still. And like Nick and I were speaking the other day, we still haven't had that many events. So there's still some bugs that we're working out.
Thanks.
And there's a lot that I myself don't know. Once he hits his side, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. He's the expert on that side, and vice versa. So.
Thank you. Before I go to Councilor DeSorger, was there anyone who hasn't asked questions? Okay, Councilor DeSorger.
So I had one last question and I don't know if this was okay on rules-wise, which the clerk would know. Referencing what I wrote to the Attorney General's office about this. If we had to change the link, the meeting link at the last minute, this would be something I think you might know, Fernando. Is it possible that new link could be up for everybody to see right away, if that's allowed by law? Do we have the capacity as a city to put the link on the town website immediately if there was a problem with it, with notification?
Somebody will have to do that. The website, you can access our website 24/7, so someone with admin rights could put that up there. But I don't know if you're referencing to the problem when I was here that first time where I did not want to reboot a piece of equipment due to the link not being able to continue that meeting. We have solved that. If we have to do that again, you can still reopen the meeting with the same link. So that won't be necessary that way because we wanted to avoid that piece. And on a normal meeting, I would have rebooted it, but that meeting was pretty rough. as far as the attendance and all the involvement that was going with it. Sorry about my language. So I did not want to take the chance of losing that meeting and everyone who was in it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I do have one.
Yes,
Kind of.
go ahead.
So is the camera like following? Because I mean, we don't see it up there anymore. We used to see it sometimes, which is fine. We don't need to see ourselves. We're here. But can the public see us right now? And does it go by like speaker?
Yeah, so right now for the meetings that GCTV is here for, we have 4 cameras in the room.
Okay.
There's basically 1 on each wall.
Right.
So that camera right now is getting the 2 of us, and I can see that I am talking. Okay. And so then we have 3 cameras, and they're all robotic, basically, so we can assign that. And so then in the back of the room, Philippe tonight is switching it, so he's switching cameras depending on who is
Directing.
talking or if Zoom is coming in. Yeah.
Okay. And so with that being said, so the video feed hasn't been a problem, is that right? Is it just the audio that's really causing most of it?
For the most part, it really hasn't been a Zoom issue. It's like you mentioned in the beginning, that it's like the interface when it goes from Zoom to going into the mix and out. That's been the issue. So if during the last meeting when we were having some issues, if it was just a Zoom meeting, hybrid meeting, it would have worked fine. But it's that interface and that's a very sophisticated interface that happens where you bring in sound, video from different cameras into one place. That's where some of the little bugs are being found.
Because all of those things are trying to act as one, right? Is
Yeah, and it's actually, I mean, Fernando, it's a very complex system, as he's saying, and there's actually different items that are in signal changes, and sometimes they merge and sometimes they separate depending on where they're going. The other thing, I don't know if this was a part of your question also, but when GCTV is here, whatever we switch to as our main program out is what the people on Zoom see.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you decided, like, maybe you had I know this question had come up before, where you want to have more committee chairs meetings being through Zoom, that you will be using only one camera, goes through Zoom, and it will be seamless almost.
Right.
But it's not going through, it's not going to YouTube and GCTV, and it's different.
Okay.
So it's the hybrid piece where we're having a little bit of an issue.
And yeah, and interestingly, I can tell you right now, I'm having this issue with my signal that is leaving here. We send a single signal out, and then we use a service that splits it so that we can broadcast it on TV. It also goes to our YouTube, our Facebook, things like that. And that service keeps dropping between connected and connecting. So we're having a lot of dropouts. So even though it's working well in Zoom right now, we're having some issues on the channel on our end. And I'm not sure why that is at the moment.
All right.
Yes, Councilor Ricketts.
So I want to thank you both for being here. It's been great. We've been in a lot of emails a couple years ago, and, you said it was going to have glitches and problems from the beginning, so none of this is a surprise. But I want to also thank you for having it on Facebook and having it on YouTube. You have it everywhere, and then it's also on our town website and stuff. So even if anything happens and somebody misses something, I'm so glad to know that it's on all those different.
Yeah, and I will tell you that we are recording this, so that we'll put those recordings up afterwards too.
In 3 places.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so thank you very much. Nobody's missing anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from those participating remotely? I think I'm more worried about missing them because I can't see their faces. Okay. All right, so I think you two are able to go back to what you were doing and have a great night, have some dinner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
again.
All right. And then next, Acting Chief Gordon is going to give us an update on the police. And while he does that, I'm going to grab the comment sheet for public comment.
Good evening.
Hello.
The first thing I want to say is thank you very much for the outreach and support when Clarence passed away. A lot of you contacted me, and I really appreciate that. And thank you very much for having it in the newsletter or the council meeting notes. So I appreciate that, and it was nice to see that I got a lot of support for that. So thank you. Is this going to be question and answer? Do you want me to?
I thought if you wanted to give us an update,
Sure.
and then that's going to generate questions.
Okay, great. So I have some statistics here that were talked about that a lot of people had some questions on, so I wanted to bring it forward to you. So from the last council meeting where we had the cuts, I wanted to let you know a broad idea of what's going on in the community. I can't get into specifics of the cases, but I can tell you generalization of the cases. So from, I believe the date of the meeting was May 18th until last Monday, or this Monday when I ran the stats. Greenfield had 1 kidnapping abduction, 7 forcible rapes, 1 forcible sodomy, 6 forcible fondlings, 10, forgot my glasses, 10 aggravated assaults, 22 simple assaults, 2 intimidations, 1 arson, 11 break-in and enterings, 10 shopliftings, 10 reported shopliftings, 9 theft from a building, 13 theft from motor vehicles, 34 other larcenies, 2 motor vehicle thefts, 2 counterfeit and forgeries, 4 false swindlings, 2 impersonations, 3 embezzlements, 1 stolen of property offenses, 32 instances of vandalism, 2 narcotics violations, and actually that statistic is higher because most of our narcotics work is done through a task force. It's not reported on these sheets. 2 statutory rapes, 2 weapon law violations, 2 disorderly conducts, 1 trespass on real property, and 20 other offenses, 11 town bylaw offenses. One of the things that I do want to say that none of this was caused by any type of budget cuts. There's no blame here. I went through July, the last 3 Julys to see where we are in the rates of crime. And although the rates of crime have significantly increased, they're not completely different from each other's years. These are just what we see in Greenfield. There has been a significant increase in 2022 of aggravated assaults and break-in and enterings and malicious destruction complaints. There's been a significant increase also in weapon law violations, which is different than the type of weapon law violations that was on this sheet that I just spoke about. And for example, in 2020, there was 1 weapon law violation. 2021, there was 8 weapon law violations. In 2022, in July only, there were already 10 weapon law violations. Those 10 weapon law violations involve 16 different firearms. In 2020, if we total that whole list that I just read to you, but only talking about July, there would have been 121 incidences. In 2021, there was 154 violations. And in 2022, there was 163 violations. I think that you see the crime rate trend is not just a Greenfield incident. It is a worldwide trend. Crime is going up. It's not going down. And there was quite a bit of difference between 2020 and where we were in July in 2020 and where we are in July in 2022. People are getting out of the houses much more. They're interacting with each other much more. So I would say that the crime trend, although is increasing, it's not increasing dramatically for what we would expect. This would be an expected type of crime. Looking again, just in July 2022, we've had, this is for victims, victims by race and sex. We've had 0 victims of Asian descent. We've had 4 black females and 2 black males as victims. No American Indians or Alaska Natives. No Native Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders. No unknown, which is something that we've been working on in years past. We've had significant unknown, and we wanted to make sure our officers worked on that. We've had 27 white female victims and 28 male white victims. We've had 14 businesses become victims, and a total of 61 individual victims. Arrests based on race, sex, and age. We have no arrest of the Asian population. 2 black males were arrested. No American Indian, Alaskan natives. No Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders. No unknowns. 4 white females and 10 white male victims.
Arrest.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem. In July of this year, and I read some of these statistics that was a couple months long, but I just wanted to look at 1 month, the first month of this fiscal year. So some of this is repeated of what I've already said because of that. In July, we had 1 kidnapping, 3 forcible rapes, 2 forcible fondlings, 14 aggravated assaults, 11 simple assaults, 3 intimidations, 1 arson, 5 burglary, break-in and enterings, 7 shopliftings, 4 theft from a building, 9 theft from motor vehicle, 12 other larcenies, 1 motor vehicle theft, 2 swindling false pretenses, 1 embezzlement, 1 embezzlement, 1 stolen property offense, 27 malicious destruction events, 4 drug events, but I explained to you that not all of those are in Greenfield statistics. The 10 weapon law violations I talked about earlier. 2 disorderly conducts, 1 driving under the influence, 2 trespass of real property, 24 other offenses, and 16 bylaw offenses. I already talked about that one. So then we wanted to look at exactly, like, is there a specific time that we can focus on of where most of the crime is happening? When I was a younger officer, you'd very typically say Fridays and Saturday nights would be our peaks. We don't see that anymore. So the peak of the crime incidences by days, there's a small peak at 10 a.m., a small peak at 4 p.m., then it's 4, 5, and 6 p.m. of the day. Then for 7 o'clock, everybody goes home and has dinner, so we have a little lull there. But at 8 p.m., right before bed, everybody tends to get rowdy again. So we have a spike there. So typically 10 a.m. is when people start waking up and start moving around, maybe finding crime that happened overnight. And then you have a small area when people come home from work and before they go to bed. The busiest days are Fridays and Saturdays. However, Tuesdays is just as busy as Fridays and Saturdays. That was interesting. Then we have what's called no crime incidences. This could be like, for example, if somebody died at home, they didn't commit a crime. So we have no crime incidences. And no crime incidences could be like a Section 12. In July, we had 6 Section 12s by CSO. That would be CSO calling us and saying, can you please serve a Section 12? A Section 12, for people that don't know, is involuntary committal to a hospital. A Section 35 there was 3 of those this month. That's actually gone down significant. We were much busier with Section 35s. Section 35s is an involuntary committal by a court. So one is by a provider and one was by a court. And then we had a small amount, Section 12s by a police department was 4. And that's gone down dramatically with the co-response program. The co-response program, we're seeing a reduction in about 50 to 60% reduction, depending month to month, in involuntary committals, which is really a strong goal of what we're doing, is we don't want to send people to the hospital, but in some cases, there's no other choice. We had,
Recording in progress.
it's okay.
Recording stopped.
We had two
Recording in progress.
We get that IT
I'm
guy
good.
in here?
But I'm good. I can continue? All right, great. We had two missing people that that weren't involved in crime. That's typically maybe a runaway, that's not criminal. 9 domestic disturbances that didn't involve crime, that we still mediated and were able to settle it without having somebody be charged with anything. We had 1 overdose that involved heroin. I'm sorry, 3 overdoses that involved heroin, 1 overdose that did not include the heroin. And sudden deaths, we had 3 sudden deaths throughout the month of July. So that's just one month. We are a very busy police department. We are a county seat, which brings in a lot of services, and the services keep us busy. These are only what the stats that I read to you are only the stats that have some kind of written document, a written police report. These are not the everyday documents that we just go out and handle. Like, for example, picking up a syringe is something that we would just go out and not write a report on. So some of our everyday activity is stuff that I did not report on here. These are just the major things that go on. So as you can see, that's incredibly busy, just from 1 month, never mind a period of months. One of the things that we had to do in order to meet our goals for our budget for gasoline is that we budgeted $40,000 for gasoline. We had money in other lines to be able to offset some of that overage on the gasoline, but I don't have that anymore, so I have to be really tight on my gasoline budget. So I put everybody from a single officer cruiser to 2 two-man cruisers. That still gives us, our minimum manpowering in Greenfield is 4 officers. We very rarely go over 4 officers. Sometimes we'll go over 4 officers by having a detective working. So we'll have a detective working most of these cases that I read upon, and then the officers responding to calls. But it's very, very few times that we'll have more than 5 officers. Often that detective has been put into the mix of the 4 officers, so we haven't really been running detectives recently. Matter of fact, out of the 60 available shifts in July that detectives would normally work, they only worked 18 of those shifts. So they're less than, much less than 50% of their time is doing the detective work that they need to do. And the detective work that they need to do is stuff like forcible rape, sodomies, and whatnot. So we've been pulling them out of cruisers in order to try to offset some of the overtime, to try to take some of the overtime to offset some of the other cuts. We're finding that that's not, has not really been an effective strategy, just because, when you have, unfortunately, you've heard in the news, we've had a series of 3 major shootings. You're not hearing about all the other major crime that goes on, and these detectives are just getting backed up on work. So I've had to recently pull them back and say, no, you need to get the detective work done. These are the most important cases that we have, and they have to be settled on. So we're going to be going back into that overtime a little bit more heavily than I expected. I was really trying to cut back on that overtime. But for the gasoline budget, like I said, we have $40,000 in the gasoline budget line. And in April, we used $6,134. April was the last time where we had the full month of the 4 cruisers working independent of each other. And halfway through May, I put them all together, so it wouldn't be a good month to utilize to give you an example. But in April, we used $6,134 in gasoline. That would come out to a yearly bill of $73,608. So that line is under budgeted by $30,000 to have the cars operate individually. In June, we went to the first full month of the 2 two-man cruisers. And in that month, we expended $3,900 in fuel. That would have been yearly of $46,800, which is much closer to my budgeted, goal that I need to live by. But not quite there. But I think that is more reasonable than not to be in that area. So the two-man cruisers were working. Now, a lot of people say, well, the gas prices have come down, and they have. So gas is a little bit cheaper. So in July, the two-man cruisers worked out to $3,442, which gives me a yearly cost of $41,304, which is just slightly over the budgeted of $40,000. So that plan is working to what we have budgeted. It's not necessarily working for the citizens of Greenfield. I'm getting a lot of complaints about speeders. I'm reading things on Facebook, and I know I probably would be better off not reading Facebook posts, but literally people saying, I don't care, I'm going to continue to speed because there's no cops out there. We are out there. We are out there, but they're going call to call to call to call. If we find you, and we will still give you a citation. So that's not true that we're not out there. But citations have significantly declined. In 2022, for example, our officers in January, which is a winter month and people tend to drive a lot slower, we issued 74 citations in July. February was 127 citations. March is 177 citations. The officers were really engaged in trying to help the neighborhoods with the speeding problems. In April, we had 138 citations. Of course, the officers are now starting to get a little busier doing other types of calls. They're not out in the neighborhoods as much, so it starts declining. In May, it declined to 91. That's a significant drop from our high of 177. But in June, it dropped to 20. And in July, not finishing the entire month, because I just forgot to update the statistics. There were still more days in the month, but we only had 10 citations in July. So the citizens aren't wrong by saying that the police are not writing citations. It's very difficult when I had mandates such as stop idling cruisers. And cruisers in the neighborhood idle, and they use gas. And, and in May, I was told by the council that the cruisers are idling too much, and we shouldn't do that. But the cruisers are just out straight. They don't have as much time to do the traffic enforcement. So traffic enforcement has suffered. It's not something we're proud of, but it is what it is. Another thing that we've had to do, and we started midway through July, because it's something that we've never had to do in the Greenfield Police Department before, and that is to tell citizens that we can't respond, and we can't respond in a timely manner. So we actually had to create a new system in our computer system to start measuring how many calls that we've had to stack and say that we haven't had a appropriate response time. And from July 11th, when we started that new system, until August 15th, just a couple days ago, we had to stack 50 different calls that the Greenfield Police Department couldn't respond to in an urgent manner. When it comes to the budgeting, I looked at 1 month worth of wage, how much we're paying in wages, to try to judge it, because I'm not sure if you saw the Public Safety Committee meeting that I had earlier, and I said that it would be very difficult for us in the summer months to lay people off because of exactly what I was telling you, and that we also have vacation season, and it would actually cost a lot more to lose people over the summer because we would have to replace them with overtime. And not only that, but right now, our guys and our men and women do not want to work overtime. We call them, and it's urgent. Some of them will respond. Most of them might have something else to do. And it's not something that we're used to in the Greenfield Police Department. Normally, when we call and we say, we need you, they jump right out. Now they're considering life more important at home or whatnot. I'm not going to judge why this is happening, but it's getting difficult to get officers in. Just last week at that bombing incident on Union Street, we called for 2 officers to come back, and we couldn't get anybody, and we had to rely on mutual aid. But looking at our projected expenses, we expended $263,897 in the first month. Now, if you take that and times it by 12, you can kind of project what you're spending and where you're at. And the projected expenses for the year is $3,166,000 and some change. That's not entirely accurate either, because we haven't started our training times. The season for training officers typically is October to February, which costs a lot more overtime. So we're in the hole, moving things around, because we got rid of the part-time budget, which was $33,000, and we put that to full-time officers, and we moved some other money around, but we're still in the hole for about $200,000. And that depends a lot on where we are with overtime. So that is where we are at for statistics and where the police department is. Some other things that have been going on that we've been getting a lot of heat on is what's happening in our parks and on Main Street, and the amount of accosting that's happening to customers of businesses. We had one business that contacted the mayor last week, and this is a new business to town. I'm not gonna say which business it was, but they said that they have one more year on their lease, and they are leaving Greenfield because of the crime, and they can't get their customers to come into their store. We really took that to heart. I mean, that's a pretty big statement. We really appreciate our businesses. So we started to do what we're gonna call intermittent enforcement actions, and we're going to spot check the areas to ensure that people are following the laws and the rules of the parks and whatnot. Over the past 2 days, the downtown area has become so blatantly obvious with people violating the laws and the rules of the parks that we made 18 arrests in 2 days, mostly on day shift, of people that are drinking just in public. They're not even hiding it with paper bags like they used to in the old days, of trespassing on the railroad tracks. We have one encampment that is in the area that's commonly known as the jungle. And 2 weeks ago, we had a violent rape that happened in there, and at last the victim was raped for over 90 minutes. That is not, we cannot have that go on. Me being the chief, I cannot allow that to happen. So I stepped up the overtime. I put the detectives back into their detective positions, and we're working that as we should appropriately deal with this. So like I said, we've made 18 arrests over the last 2 days, and reinforced the laws that were blatantly being violated. And we're gonna continue that. I can't continue that every single day. I don't have the money for that, but we're gonna intermittently have teams that will enforce these types of laws. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but over the last 2 days, our parks and downtown area has been much more pleasant to be walking through as well. So that's where we are right now. I'm more than willing to take any questions or listen to any comments and feedback.
Okay, before I start choosing counselors, I see that there's someone from the public who has their hand raised on Zoom, and I just want to let them know that, I see Counselor May also, but I see someone from the public on that screen right there, and I want to let them know that public comment is going to happen later on in the agenda. So right now, it's just counselors who are able to ask questions. So first I had Counselor Lapinski, then I had Counselor Mayo.
Right, so I want to thank the acting chief for showing up, and I just want to go back to those statistics that you opened with. I did get a little lost between the annual and the monthly, but I'm not going to dwell on that for now. My question on that specifically, and then I have a couple more, is you listed, we have this many of this, we have this many of this, we have this many of this. First of all, those are alleged crimes, right? These haven't been proven in court. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I just want to have that noted for the record, because many people who don't understand the nature of police work may think these are all things that definitely happen. These are things that people are accused of doing. Second question, are all of these individual incidents, or are some of them multiple charges for the same individual?
I'm just taking a quick peek to see if I see repetitive numbers, and I do not see repetitive numbers. So I would have to say that these are individual instances.
Right, so in other words, nobody was accused of breaking into two cars, back to back, or nobody was accused of breaking into a car and destruction of property, something like that, because that does happen, but not in this case.
It doesn't appear so, but there may be some repetitive numbers, but there's doesn't seem to be very much, so.
Sure. Do you know what percentage, you did mention some non-crime incidents. Do you know what percentage of the calls did not result in any criminal citations or arrests?
I have not done the calculations to give you the exact number of that.
Do you think it was more or less than half?
Much less than half.
Okay. And I would assume that number's gone down in recent months? In other words, you used to have more time for non-crime incidents?
No, I don't think that would be a fair statement. We don't judge the calls when they come in as being that. They are at the outcome of the event. So I don't think it's fair to say that those numbers have come down. They're probably, if anything, stayed with the same trend as crime statistics, but I'm
Okay.
not positive, so I don't want to give you a positive number on that.
Fine, so those are my questions, and I have two comments. One is, while I am happy to see Main Street businesses doing well and having the town be comfortable and convenient to walk through. And I myself have been harassed walking through Energy Park, and so I'm not a stranger to that idea. But I just want to note for the record that most of the people causing that sort of crime are people that primarily cause it because they have nothing else to do, and many of them don't have a home. And I think it would be nice if our response as a community was a little bit more compassionate than just arresting them because they're making other people uncomfortable. They shouldn't be doing that. But I don't see how we're going to arrest them out of homelessness. And I don't see how, if someone is raped, we need the police. But a lot of the other stuff, really what we need is to figure out how to help people that need help. And we're not doing that right now. And I'm not sitting before you saying I have a perfect solution, but I am not going to be intimidated out of trying to do that by a business threatening us. So, and my second comment, I can't remember it, so if we have time, we'll come back to it.
No problem. I don't think it's just one
no, I do
business's comment that created this. It's an abundance of comments from abundance of people. People are afraid, bands are afraid to play, in the energy park. We used to see people playing with their kids on the little train set that they have there. We don't see that anymore. People aren't having their lunches down in the park like they used to. So it's not just one business, so I don't want to judge it that we received one complaint, so therefore we're this, But I also want to make sure that you understand that most of these people that have been arrested actually do have homes, that they are going
Okay,
to the
good to
park
know.
during the days to partake in these activities that intimidate the mass of people. The parks don't belong to 18 people, they belong to 18,000 people.
That's correct. I completely agree with you on that. My final comment, I did remember it, is...
So I have other
30 seconds,
counselors that
please.
need to be recognized. Next, I have Counselor Mayo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have two items, and one of them I was going to ask the mayor, but seeing so the mayor is not here, I'll ask the police chief, but I'll ask the acting police chief. He mentioned one statistic that, calls that they weren't ready to get, they weren't ready to, respond to. In those calls, how long did it take that to eventually get to them?
I heard your comment. I'm taking a quick look. I'm seeing, there's 50 different calls here, counselors. So I'm seeing 20 minutes. I'm seeing, this one is randomly, I'm seeing 16 minutes. This one is closer to an hour. I just saw one that was 16 minutes. It was happened to be for a hit and run.
Yeah.
So when you want a police officer there because somebody hit your car and run, you don't want to wait 16 minutes. Some of them have no officer arrival time.
Okay.
So some of them we weren't able to get to. Those are typically citizen calls. So
Yep.
maybe we were able to talk to the citizen a different way in getting there. But it looks like it's probably an average of 20 to 30 minutes before we got there.
Okay. Now, my next question was really for the mayor, but because you're the police department, you're representing the police department, I'll ask you. And maybe you've seen this on Facebook, but somebody reached out to me on Facebook and specifically asked me, why is the police chief who is on paid leave using a city vehicle?
Great question.
The city vehicle is part of the compensation package that is in his contract. And right now, he is paid on paid administrative leave without loss of compensation. So in order to not lose the compensation that he is allowed to use a city vehicle because of it is contractual.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, because I'm curious, and then I'll go back to the speaking order. Shouldn't police vehicles be used for police business? I mean, I don't think you would take a cruiser to the grocery store, right?
So when it comes to the chief and I, we're on duty 24 hours a day, and we are responsible to be on call, and that we may have to be called out at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and whatnot. It's part of the compensation package instead of receiving on-call pay, because there's very few other department heads that are on call 24 hours a day, that the compensation package includes the vehicle, which also is the reason for the vehicle is for rapid response. If you had something that you needed a supervisor there immediately, you wouldn't want him to drive past the incident to go to the station to get his equipment or whatnot, then to get into the car and then to arrive to the incident.
Right.
So for certain supervisors, detective supervisor is another one that is allowed to bring their vehicle home, because you want them to go directly to the bank robbery and not, there's also some other negative parts of it. When you are at home, all of your equipment has to be home and not locked up in your locker. So there's some responsibilities that go with that compensation package as well.
Okay, I understand your point, but I think maybe we want to put this one on hold and ask the mayor about it, because I could see how for you could leave this meeting tonight and need to go respond to something, but if someone's on paid leave, then they're on leave. So
Right, they're not allowed to
But I think that
respond.
maybe we would get better details from the executive.
That would definitely be a question for her, not me.
All right, I did see some hands go up. Okay, I've got Vice President Gwynn, then I had Counselor DeStorger, and then I believe I have Counselor is that Counselor Bullock? Okay. Can't see his.
I lost track of where I'm looking for.
Chief, thank you for those numbers that you gave us. I just have some follow-up questions, one on Councilor Mayo's question. You said there was 50 calls that weren't responded to in a normal, timely manner. Are those items that aren't responded to prioritized by what's being called in as the occurring crime? we're not delaying true emergencies, it's things that can be followed up with a delay?
That's correct. That's correct.
So-
Everything's prioritized.
It's prioritized. So if someone's calling saying their bike is missing from their yard, that would be something that would be delayed versus something that needed an emergency style response.
Correct. If it was an emergency style response and the officers weren't available, which has happened, unfortunately, I don't have that stat, we immediately call the state police or another town to respond. So any type of life and death type of emergencies will get a police response.
And I just wanted to clarify that only because I don't want anyone to think if they call with a true life and death, fear, or whatever, that they're going to get, we'll see you in a half an hour. And I don't think that's what you intended, but I want to make sure
Yes,
that
thank
was
you.
clear.
Thank you.
Secondly, when you were giving us that list, and maybe you said this in the beginning and I didn't catch it, what about all the other things that our police are responding to that aren't in that list, like alarm calls and car accidents? You didn't mention any of that. Aren't those numbers where are those in those statistics? Because I saw two of your officers at 3 o'clock in the morning at the radio station recently, and on an alarm call, and it made me think when you were reading that, what happens to all those numbers? Those have to be significant also.
Yes, matter of fact, I'm quickly seeing if I happen to have a prior month on me. In the middle of trying to prepare for this meeting, I also had a lot of other police-related incidences going on, and I apologize, I did not do the calls that did not have a written report. But you're right, alarm calls are, is a call that wouldn't have been in there.
And what about accident reports?
Same thing.
Right. I just, when I was hearing those numbers, those were crimes, but I can imagine that we do still get a lot of, accident calls and a lot of alarm calls, and those are just two examples. So we're not to think that that's all that our police force is doing, correct?
You have a very good point, and I'm kind of struggling right here because I thought I may have had the June report that talked about a lot of the stuff that we had, which gave a much more comprehensive look, and it might be in this packet here, that have that type of calls. So, so I can give you an area of calls. So for last year, we responded to 388 reportable accidents. Now, you could divide that by 12 and have a guesstimate of what you're having per month. Restraining orders was 334. Suicidal people, despondent people suicidal was 321. Medical assists was 929. I'm trying not to repeat myself. Yes, unfortunately, you're right. There was a lot more calls that we handle on every day that wasn't on that list.
Yeah, almost one a day in all those categories. If you're talking 300 plus, you're talking 365 a year, you're responding to one of all of those calls on a daily basis in addition to the rest.
And it certainly might be nice if they pace themselves one a day, but that's not how.
Oh, I'm sure. It averages 6 a week, so,
Yeah, right. It could be 6 in 1 hour,
And then
I heard you were being a little upset.
that would work. That would work. And 900 of some calls, then we already know that's 3 a day if life was perfect. So, thank you.
Sorry, could the folks at home please mute themselves until they're called on?
And my point, Chief, was just to make sure that we realize there's a lot more going on than those calls, because I see it every day, and I know that we're responding to a lot more than the crimes that you listed, because, like I said, we're seeing those. You also talked about the fuel, and keep in mind, in the way this council works, obviously, if you have an expense that is in the best interest of the citizens of Greenfield, at the end of the year, if you have to come back to this council and ask for money to pay for fuel, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I'm not going to tell you no. So, there are things that we just need to do to support you in a way that needs to get done, and that would be one.
I appreciate that, and I've had a lot of thought about that, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to meet the budget of which is given to me at the time of which it's given to me, and I don't have the ability to project whether I'll get support from a council that just gave me significant cuts. So there's a trust that needs to go back and forth here, and I'm not sure I can trust that I will have that support at the end of the year, so I do have to live with the budget as given to me.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, next I had Counselor Distorger, and then Counselor Bullock is after her.
Thank you, Chief. And thanks for all you do.
Thank
Listening to all of those things, you've been protecting a lot of our citizens from all kinds of things. I had a couple of things. I wanted to go back to the gas, and actually that trust issue that we just brought up in June, was in June. We're all intelligent people and caring people that are sitting here. All three departments that use fuel came before us because fuel has escalated. And we voted to give everybody the fuel that they needed. The DPW was short fuel. The fire department was shortest, the largest percentage of fuel. And in June, we unanimously voted to give you $25,000 just to get you to July 1. And still, you had gone to two officers in one car at that point. It appears to me, listening to the numbers, that May was 6,000, June was 6,000, and we had 3,000. So you actually, in the end, you must have been ahead on the fuel because of the 25,000.
No, I believe that 25,000 was for the year-end expenditure, that we were in the hole by 25,000. And the other part, it wasn't just for June, it was for what was already overspent. And I think it's also important to understand that I was a brand-new department head, and I didn't know that there was an expenditure that was on the table for that money.
Exactly.
So that
But
was...
Just as far as trust goes, every one of our departments, I just want you to know this, I can speak for myself, and I feel fairly comfortable, I'm not speaking for the whole group, but I'm looking at the heads around here, there will be gas money, because we showed you that. We just did that. We voted enough gas so that everybody can get to the things. And I think it's very important. I ran an emergency room during a time when we actually made staffing cuts, but we did assure the people that we could safely take care of them. And if you have the staff, because it appears to me that we've only actually lost one person. And we showed a month ago, or a month and a half ago, that we are more than willing to vote for you the fuel that is needed. So I'll speak for myself, saying I know that my own fuel costs have gone up astronomically. I do have a concern about fuel, a little concern about fuel. If someone's using fuel, then it doesn't have anything to do with work-related things, but that being said, for you to get to take care of the citizens of Greenfield, fuel will be voted for appropriately. And as far as the budgetary cuts, all of these things that have happened, we have one less police officer. And now my last question is about what we tell the citizens when they can't come, when you can't come because there are two people, I guess, in a car, because the staffing could not have changed all of that much because we're down one person. I heard that dispatch responded and said they couldn't come and to speak to their city councilors. Would that be something that they're allowed to say?
So one thing that I need to first address is that we're down one person on the books. We also have 2 officers that are injured and 3 that are typically on vacation at any given time. So we're actually down about 6 officers right now. So it's not, the vacation time will settle down once summer goes away, but then if we have to do layoffs, it will kind of come and go with that. So we're actually down a good amount. Most of those are out of the either patrol force or the detective bureau. So we're down more than one. But I don't know what they're saying to counselors, I mean, to people, but there has been some comments of when people are saying, you know, we are looking for more police response, especially when it comes to speeding complaints and issues such as parks and Main Street, that we don't have enough officers, and that we would appreciate, you know, if you're that concerned, to come to a council meeting so their voices can be heard too. We do believe in hearing the voices of the people, and that the people should be directed to you so you can hear, you know, what people's concerns are.
Absolutely, we do want to hear from people. I just wondered if that was about that was.
I don't think it's said all the time, but
Okay.
on occasion, it
Okay,
might,
on
if
occasion-
somebody's
on
very
occasion,
frustrated.
dispatch might say, yes,
Yeah.
okay. So just so you know, fuel for me, and I'm sure for most of the people here would be happy to do that. And,
And
like to
on the
thank
fuel
you.
too, sorry,
I know, I'd just like to say, I realize too, it was the same in the emergency room. The summertime, it's unbelievable, and it is the time when you have to cover all of the vacations, because most people really like to go on vacation during the summer. It's when the kids are off. So, and I actually read a little bit about police work, and it does, you know, just looking to see if it paralleled in any fashion what used to happen in the emergency room. And I did find that weekends and Tuesdays were your busiest day nationwide, whereas we were weekends and Mondays. But the summer months, and especially when it's hot, the calls, I think, for EMTs also, and the shortness of breath, it's extraordinary, the numbers. So it's sort of like a perfect storm there when it's summertime. But thank you again for all you're doing.
you're absolutely correct, and you're very welcome. I think it's important to know that that's why we didn't do any layoffs at this point in time, because like I said, we're already down 6, so to include layoffs on top of that would be just devastating. So we're trying to look at the first quarter is going to be different than the second, third, and fourth quarter.
Okay, next I had Counselor Bullock and then Counselor Toronzo. Then I'll go to Counselor Ricketts.
Hi, I just wanted to share that I did speak with the mayor's office about the question of why is the Chief Haig, who's on leave, using a city car, and I was told that he's no longer using a city car. So I just wanted to share that with council members. Of course, the mayor's office can share something different, but I did ask last week and was told that he's no longer using a city car. He's using a personal vehicle.
I do know he
That's
bought himself a car, so I'm not in everyday contact with him, so. Thank you.
Okay, then I had Counselor Toronzo, then Counselor Ricketts.
Hi, good evening. A couple comments on the stats. I'm a stats nerd. This is a similar question I asked during our budget meetings, was that I know that in normal times, a 3-year look back is really representative of what's going on. However, the last 2 years prior to this, COVID. So we not only saw that affect numbers in the budget, and I'd asked kind of the mayor's office the same thing with creating the budget down the road, is a further look back might be helpful until we're out of this, this state. But off the top of your head, maybe, I don't know, put you on the spot. You were going back on like 3-year trends, and so like 2020 was this way and 2022 has gone in a different way. Did you happen to notice it? Were the trends different prior to that? Because of course things, when people were all sheltering in 2020 a lot more, I'm sure that a lot of those statistics would have gone down. I'm sure some of them also went up. But did it seem any correlation to prior to that at all, or what?
Well, I've been doing this in Greenfield for over 30 years, so I have a good sense of how Greenfield works. And I can tell you that 30 years ago, we were a very busy police department. We're a very busy police department now, different ways. 30 years ago, you had a lot of people on Main Street. You had the people that were were in the car clubs, the teenagers that all hung out at, the gas station or CVS or you had a lot of people that hung, especially youth, that hung out in front of the old police station. We had a lot of public intoxication, and we actually, we had a lot of protective custodies, and where people were so inebriated that they couldn't even stand anymore. We actually seen those trends go down, and then now, but all of a sudden now they're coming back. And I attribute it because there was no detox in Greenfield for quite a long time. So because there was no services, the people that needed those services went to the communities that had the services. We then brought the services back, and now we're seeing the trends go back. So when you have an increase over here, you'll probably have the decrease over here, and it moves back and forth. But for calls of service per officer, we are one of the busiest communities that people talk about. Like other agencies, look at our statistics, and they're very surprised at what we do with what we have.
Gotcha.
That's anecdotally. I'm a numbers guy too, and I don't have the exact numbers to share you. I do have some numbers because we were compared to agencies like East Hampton and Amherst and North Adams. I have some of those numbers to show the comparatives, but I already addressed that in Public Safety Council if you want. That's pretty lengthy conversation.
Right. I remember I watched that one. Do any of so these are just our statistics, but do any state police assisted responses, if you are calling them to take a call for you, or if they happen in the city,
I don't have
those showing up on there as well?
I don't have the specific numbers for you with the state police. I would have to get the state police to give me the numbers of
So those
what
are
they're
separate.
doing.
This was just GPD?
These are just GPD, yeah. The state police, we had a conversation with the major and the lieutenant that's in charge, the major that's in charge of all of B Troop, which is pretty much Western Mass, and the lieutenant that's in charge of Shelburne Falls. They have basically three troopers in this barracks that covers most of Franklin County. And they were very quick to say that they would not be able, because we were talking about maybe getting rid of the midnight shift as a possibility when we were brainstorming of all the different things we could do.
Right.
And they were very quick to say that we could not rely on the state police to cover for service calls. That they would come if there was a life and death emergency. Everybody would come. I don't think any police officer anywhere would sit down if there's a life or death emergency. We'll always respond somewhere, somehow, we will be there. But they wouldn't be able to come if there was like an alarm call, and that, even though that could be a burglary, but they would come for a bank panic alarm.
Right.
But they were very quick to say, please do not rely on the state police. Now, saying that, with the shootings and the bombings and the crazy stuff that's been happening this year, we've been relying a lot on their ancillary areas, like bomb squad or their crime scene or, the detective unit to help us when we're overwhelmed.
Right.
And a single incident can quickly overwhelm a police department that only has 2 cruisers and 4 people.
Have you heard of any, I know the state just passed an increase in the gas tax, the gas reimbursement rate for state employees to kind of alleviate some of the super increase, the like doubling of gas that's happened over the last like 7-8 months. Have you gotten any word that there's any kind of extra funding being allocated for, I mean, maybe this would be for the mayor instead, I don't know, but I just didn't know if you'd heard any word about any extra funding for gasoline that.
No, but the DPW chief is here. He'd probably know more about that than I would. The DPW contracts for gasoline for the city.
Okay.
They give us gas cards, and I know that there's a discount, a significant discount from what you're seeing on the pumps.
Right.
But it was significantly discounted at a lower rate, so the discount remained the same.
Sure.
So when the gas prices went up, we still paying more.
Right.
But I don't know. But we are looking at other types of grants We have a couple of exciting grants we're looking forward to, one of which was something that I talked to a lot of counselors about, coming up with some money to make more speed signs to help the neighborhoods. We actually got a grant for that of over $30,000, so we're gonna be, next month, I believe, purchasing a new message board and a couple more speed signs. We're looking at a COPS More grant, which is a federal grant that is designed for departments that were, for lack of a better word, defunded, to bring officers that are possibly laid off back to service, and also put for additional officers. That is something that is going to take I believe, a 3-year commitment from the town council. So when and if we get that grant, we're going to have another conversation about whether we want to commit to a grant like that.
Sure.
But it's it's like $1 million grant.
Gotcha. And I know a lot of the questions have been put around the, two guys per cruiser, or 2 officers per cruiser, which, I mean, for me, sounds heavy in a way. I just want to point out, because I thought this when I saw the Public Safety Commission and some comments in the newspaper, and even tonight, and this is nothing against you, I just think the comment needs to be validated, that there was no mandate placed by us to get rid of gasoline. It was a cut to that item with suggestions on what was being cut from there. There was, if I remember correctly, there was one person on this council who had the gas idle as a stick in their craw, I guess I'd say. I certainly would never, especially knowing that the cost of gas is going up, would never have suggested that be a thing to do. I get the idea of, I think the idea of trying to micromanage how departments work is not something that we should be doing, because we're not in that field, which is why I would never suggest that, well, yeah, I see an idle car sitting there. Why is it sitting there? Well, there's reasons for it, and I think that you gave really good, clear reasons for that at the time. And it's like, yeah, could there be a gentle push or something, or a push out there to be like, hey guys, maybe if you don't need it, leave it idling. Don't leave it idling. I say that to my employees as well. I'm like, guys, why are you running it while you're just loading the truck? You don't need to start the car yet. But I think that just my opinion, I think that might have been a kind of a heavy, I don't know, slightly extreme solution to try to cover what would be 25 grand, and as was suggested, it could be reconciled at the end of the year. And I get the idea of the trust issue, and yeah, I don't know. That would be, I guess, if I would say, I just said I wouldn't do that, my micromanagement suggestion would be, there might be other options to explore, and if I can be one more voice to say that I wouldn't want less response because we have to team up to save what turns out to be pretty much a few dollars in gasoline. I would much rather see that put back into having more coverage for response times in the city. So that was.
I respect that, Counselor, and it was my decision. It was not your decision. I listened to the comments from the council, and I took the comments from the council. I take the comments from the mayor, and I take the comments from the people of Greenfield all to heart when I make these decisions. And some of the comments that were said, such as we would be safer with less police. Why would you want police to respond to your house? Some of those comments were taken, and we said, okay, I guess the community wants less police. And when we saw the outrage of that type of comment, that we realized that the majority of the community wasn't saying the same message that I was getting from the council. And the council was in May, was pretty direct on what they were asking for, and there was a lot of comments about much, much higher numbers. And that if I didn't listen to the council, I'm going to face those higher cuts in other years. We're listening to $1 million cuts, $1.2 million, $2 million cuts. It was like an auction. And if I don't listen to your voices, that's what's going to happen to us next year. So I listened to your voices, and I heard comments about stipends, and I heard comments from different counselors. It's not just one counselor. And I heard, I read in a comment in a paper from a counselor that said we're safer with less police, and those are the comments that I have to direct some of my decision-making on. So we tried a little bit less police. It's devastating. It did not work for this community. At least my feelings are. I'm sure you're going to hear from other people how much they enjoyed the last couple of months, but I saw what's happening in Greenfield, and a business owner asked me, or told me, and I wasn't going to share it, but I think it's right to share it. And they said to me, I know you're doing your best. And I literally looked at him, I said, this isn't my best. This is the best that I can do with what I have. And we will get our best back. It's going to take a little bit of work. I have some really demoralized officers when they hear stuff like they've been hearing. And it goes both ways. I'm not going to say I'm an angel either. We need to work together. We need for the best of the community. We need to realize that policing isn't necessarily a negative. It's also a positive, that we bring a lot of positive to this community. We help people all the time that we're accused of harassing or, going after. And most of these people that we're being accused of harassing are the same people that literally invite us to their weddings and ask us to come to their meals. And a lot of them were very upset when they lost Officer Gordon, because it was their conduit, and they trust us. And there is a big trust. And sometimes, when you're a kid and you got disciplined and you did something wrong, you didn't like the discipline, but you ended up still respecting your parents. Sometimes it goes like that in policing too. Even though we're enforcing the law, we're the only agency that enforces park laws. If we don't enforce the park laws, then there's nobody else that will do it. And then people can do whatever they want, and then all of a sudden you have malicious destruction and things that I don't even want to repeat in a public setting written on our children's slides, and we can't do that as a community. We need to work together to fix this. There were mistakes that were made, and we acknowledge the mistakes that were made, and we need to look towards the future and how to build back better. Without using that, I didn't mean to use that in the way it came out.
All right, next I had Counselor Ricketts, and then Counselor Healy.
Okay, I want to thank you for your report. I wrote as fast as I could. I got most of it, I think. After hearing the whole thing, I'm sorry that we've been talking about gas mostly after that. It's the last thing that was even on my mind. It's not that I don't care, but I know you can come back anytime for it. So that's good. What I want you to come back for, and you can trust me, is when it comes time to lay off officers, I hope that financial orders will come forward, because I'm ready to vote to put money back into this police department. I do not want this to be getting any worse than it is right now. I want to save everyone that we can. And so whatever you can figure out financially what you need, please come before council. That's the conversation I want to hear. I know there's lots of talk of other things going on right now about the audit and the police task force, things like that. None of that stuff is important to me right now. I'm only focused on getting more money back into this police department and back into the budget. So when you're ready for that, you can trust me. I'm ready to vote for funding for that. And the only question I have about all the figures that you gave us is, and you might not have it, do you know, when you look at this, how many may be from out of town, like non-residents? Because, we are the county seat, so you have the county problems, plus people from down south that come up too. So I bet you don't have it broken down that way, but I just wondered.
One, I appreciate your comments, and for your first part, I think we can compartmentalize different things and work on different strategies at the same time. So I want us to pay attention to each piece of the puzzle, so, and I think they all have their merits. And I don't want to comment on that. It's more of a political thing than why I'm here for, but I think that we can look at all pieces of the puzzle at separate times and make separate decisions. For the out-of-town residents, we do not have statistics on out-of-town residents because it really doesn't come into play, like whether somebody's in town or out of town and how we change our response to that. I think it would be very, very difficult for me to we have addresses in our database, but to be able to pull out addresses per call, you're talking a lot of hours to be able to do that. So we don't judge people whether they live or not in town. We take care of our problems. Or not, I wouldn't even say problems, we take care of what happens in Greenfield.
Okay. And just my last
Follow-up, or?
follow-up, and then
Okay.
that's it, is that I would like to come along for, a drive-along sometime. So I'll email you, reach out, and we'll figure that out, okay?
That is absolutely open to all of you.
Thank you so much.
We have a ride-along program, and as long as you're willing to sign a confidentiality waiver, because there are people's lives that we're dealing with, and this is not live PD that we have, so, we do honor people's privacy, but we have a program that we can do that with. Thank you.
All right, next I had Counselor Healy.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for, and all the officers for dealing with the cards, or they were dealt, right? It's a real tough situation to be in, and you guys are doing a great job. A couple points you made about the parks. I have a big family. I know a lot of people with big families. I won't take my kids to the park anymore. I had a friend that went to the Green River before it closed because water quality. People were drinking in public. Just not acceptable. And it's not your fault, right? You can only do so much. I've seen the articles in the paper, the shootings, the bombs, the crime rate. It's a correlation, right? And I think when the council made the decision to make the cuts, the argument was you didn't need the money compared to other communities, right? And the statistics don't lie, right? So I stand with Penny, or Councilor Ricketts, sorry. I support you guys 100%. If you come back with a financial order, I'll back it. I'll fight for it. And I want you to know that next year, if it doesn't go through, try again. The statistics don't lie. They're there. You keep doing your job and presenting those, and people will see, we need you officers. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, and there's always, we always can do better. We're always striving to do better, and we change our programs, and there's other types of programs that can be used to augment policing and to make it better. But I think that at the end of the day, when you try to remove one part and add to another part, there's consequences that come with that, and that we have to look at that. And it's much like a fire department. You don't always need to have, I don't know how many firefighters, I'm not a fireman, I'm not a fire chief, but let's just say he has 5 firemen working or 5 firefighters working. It doesn't mean that they're always putting out a house fire. They're there in case the house fire happens, and the police work is much the same, is that we don't always have shootings. We don't always have some of the stuff that we have, but when we do have them, we need to have that manpower standing by. So there's other programs like Cahoots that can help us and augment those services. Amherst is doing the exact same thing. Amherst is not cutting from their police to increase services for another agency. They're taking that other agency and augmenting the police to make it, to make the community better. And I think that that's a great discussion to have. And I don't think anybody's opposed to that. That's the type of program that we have with the co-response. And the co-response is funded by an extra $200,000 grant that doesn't take away from the officers that were already there. Now, when you have that type of program, you have a lot more buy-in from the officers. The officers don't see it as being against them, or I'm going to lose my job to X, Y, and Z, and they tend to work much closer together when nobody's being threatened by the other agency. And I think that if we go into that direction, that's the way to approach it. Is that not to take away and threaten one agency to try to build another agency. It just doesn't work. Neither agencies are gonna like that. And I've talked to the leader of the CREST program in Amherst, and that was the first thing he said, is that this is not a defunding police type of program, this is an augmenting police type of program. And to say that, also, and I wanted to build off of Councilor Ricketts' comments, in your comments, is that, you know, we will run, using the gas metaphor, as lean as we can, you know, and we're very careful about every single dollar that we spend. It's my tax money too, you know, so when we have to make decisions, I have a bill right here, of $11,500 generator repair, and it's in this big pile here, I was like, oh my gosh, if I had a generator and it was $11,500 in my personal home, I would be crazy to try to spend that for a radiator. So George helped us, and we worked hard, and we got several other builds, and we were able to get that down to $7,500. So we saved little pennies here and little pennies there, and we tried to run a very lean department. And that's, again, that's where I come with the cruisers. The numbers don't lie. I mean, I could overrun my budget, my fuel line, and it's not my bottom line, it's my fuel line, by $35,000. Or I could try to run lean and still get the work done. I mean, listen, we've had 3 shootings, we made 5 arrests out of the 3 shootings. We had a bombing, we made an arrest instantaneously. You know, the thing, our officers are still working. They're still responding to your houses, but we're running a lean department.
Okay, Counselor Bottomley, but I'm going to remind folks that this is for questions before, because I already cut one counselor off for making too many comments. So Counselor Bottomley, go ahead.
I hate to make a comment, but this is more process related. It would be really helpful in the future if we're talking budget issues. It's hard to absorb these numbers. If they could really go to Ways and Means first and have this discussion and have this emailed to us, just because for me, it's really hard to respond to all of those numbers and the comments, and it feels more appropriate to go through Ways and Means, because obviously there was the cut to the department, so the focus is on it, but I did also want to remind us there are 27 other departments, so all the focus is on this, but since we're kind of talking and bringing all these issues up again, I just had to remind everyone that it was there were serious issues that precipitated this. And I certainly value the police, and I wanted to say that, and I value what you do and what your officers and detectives do. So I wanted to say that, and thank you for that. But I did want to remind everyone that it's hard in context when there are 27 other departments, and we're only hearing one. Many are underfunded, and you said a really great comment that we do the best with what we have. And that's the really difficult juggling act that we all have to do.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, that we're not asking for another police officer because that means one less teacher, you know, and the pie is only big, and we only get our slice of the pie, but, you know, all of a sudden when our slice is getting smaller, and, you know, it affects, and there's consequences to those actions, and I'm not saying that they're negative or positive. I'm not trying to judge it. And I know that there was an incident that happened that precipitated this, but sometimes when we act out, and there was a lot of anger in the room, and understandable anger in the room, and when we act out on anger, we have negative consequences that come out with it. But like I said, you know, something happened, and I don't want to go into that, but it's something that we can work on and grow and get better about, and try to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, I'll characterize that as a request. So yes, it would be nice if we could get this in writing. I know it'd be easier for me to digest the information if I can see it.
Well, I'm sorry, President, we also present this every month in the public safety meetings as well.
Oh,
So,
I know, it's just
yeah.
very difficult for some people to make it. I know, like, I work full-time and then I'm doing
Yeah,
this,
no,
so,
I get it. And I think a much better spot for this conversation was Ways and Means back in April. You know, so I agree, next year, maybe we should bring this type of comment up during that time.
Okay, yeah, if you could, I mean, if you have that electronically, if you could email that to the clerk's office, just so that we have it for informational purposes, that'd be helpful. Okay, Do I have any counselors who haven't? No, everyone's spoken. Okay, so,
One's on Zoom.
I'm sorry? The only person on Zoom who hasn't spoken is Counselor Elmer, and I don't see that his hand is up. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to Counselor Bullock. And then Counselor Mayo, do you have your hand up or not? Because on one screen I see it up, on the other screen I don't.
That's interesting.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go to Counselor Bullock then.
I think my hand was still raised, but I just want to echo Officer Gordon that I think for me, especially when you were going over the statistics, my understanding is that overall we're in like a decline. So when you talked about those times when, you know, people were like on the street, like drag racing or whatever you were sharing about, that was clearly before my time, that we are at a 25-year decline for crime in violent crime in general. So understanding those statistics in context would be super helpful if we could see that 3-year trend. I know that when I did some research for the task force that I'm working on, we saw this 3% rise in crime in Massachusetts in 2020, like during COVID, actually, when people were locked in, crime wasn't down across the state, that crime went up 3%, and that now those trends are leveling off, and it is expected that we'll return to normal. But clearly there's a lot of residual effects that in our community. So seeing those sort of potentially like the superintendent does or other departments, sometimes they just email us like the basics of what they're going to speak about, or you know, and share that. It's easier for us to understand, or for me to understand better what I'm trying to comprehend.
That's fair.
But thank you for this presentation. It was I really appreciate you putting it all together and sharing it for the council.
Thank you.
All right, do I have any other questions? Question? Okay.
And I just want to be clear that that cutting off wouldn't have happened to any other counselor. If all you
Okay.
have is a hammer,
No,
every
No,
problem
you-
looks like a nail. And
Counselor
we have
Lapinski,
to-
I'm
excuse
really,
me.
no, you are not excused. You will stop.
We have
You
5
need to
minutes per
treat-
counselor. You
Nope.
can't cut me off like that.
You're done. You're done. Do we have any questions for the acting chief?
You don't know
about
what I
the
was going
present?
to say.
I'm done. I don't have any more time for this.
Right.
Is there
So
anybody
everyone
else
gets to
who-
say what they want to say.
You had plenty of time, and I'm done. I'm not
Cut
going
me
to be
off with 30
disrespected by,
seconds to go.
stop.
Excuse me.
I need you to leave.
That's not going to
Go.
happen.
I'm asking you to leave now.
You do not have the authority to treat me differently than every other counselor.
I need you to stop speaking.
You got to speak.
All right, I am ready. Are there any other counselors who have questions, not comments? All right, thank you. And thank you, Acting Chief, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to move on to public comment next. All right, first we have John McGee.
Good evening, counselors. I will keep it brief. My name is John McGee. I live at Green Street in Greenfield. So thank you all, as usual, for your hard work, and thank you especially to Councilor Bullock for all her hard work on the proposal for a task force. I'll skip most of what I had to say tonight, and I'll just say that in terms of the size of the pie, the goal is definitely to grow the size of the pie so that we're not fighting over pieces of it as much. One practical reason why a task force makes a lot of sense for the city of Greenfield is exactly that. the money. I would say that Greenfield should apply for funding from the Department of Public Health under the new Equitable Approaches to Public Safety program, which pays for feasibility studies and startup costs for new programs, especially civilian safety programs. This grant requires the city to be involved and to show interest in a program. Acting Chief Gordon has already shown support for having a non-police mobile crisis response program like Cahoots, as we in the Greenfield People's Budget have been pushing for. Also, I will say that if we start something like Cahoots, we can be eligible for up to for 80% of the services to be paid for by Medicaid. This is a level of outside funding that rarely comes around, and there are lots of good reasons to have a program like this here. So I'll just say thank you again for your time and efforts on this, and I do hope we have a chance to work together through a task force real soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Devorah Rosenberg, and then Jesus Leyva, so you can be ready. Oh, could you please turn your microphone on, and then just state your name and your address for the record, please?
Hi, I'm Devorah Rosenberg, better, 17 Madison Circle. First of all, thank you all for doing the jobs that you do. I'm here in particular, I was hoping the mayor might be here because I really want to see a new LSP for the Lunt toxic waste dump. I personally lived 4 houses away from a toxic waste dump in the 80s, and I had to move because it was so dangerous for my children. And the fact that the current LSP took the entire 60 days to respond to what the DEP said were problems and then didn't even address most of them, to me displays a blatant disrespect and disregard for people's lives. This is not something that is just going to go away. The toxic waste dump exists. It's not mitigated. It needs to be. Please, for the sake of all of the people in that neighborhood and for the sake of our town, please do everything you can to make sure that the mayor provides a new LSP and the funding thereof. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have Jesus Leyva and then Jean Wall.
Jesus Leyva, 32 High Street. I was going to direct a lot of my comments to Councilor Lepiansky. I vouched for you in private conversations to people when you were running for city council for your trustworthiness. And I feel like sometimes you just seem disinterested in being a counselor. Do you want to be a counselor? I mean, I know you're not allowed to respond. I'm asking the question. You can answer it at a different time if you want to, but if you don't want to, you don't have to be here. I just want you to know that in case for some reason you don't. But we have police officers in the city who have been credibly accused of real misconduct and law breaking. And that is what precipitated the conversation around the cuts. The council's response to that law breaking and misconduct was the cuts because they don't have the power to address them directly. The people who do would be the mayor, the leadership of the police department, and possibly the Public Safety Commission. To this date, I don't think that any of those bodies or people have constructively addressed any of the allegations that came out from the verdict. I went to the Public Safety Commission meeting and I listened to the statistics that Gordon just presented to you concerning all of the crime and all of the things that the police department do for Greenfield. And I am actually concerned about what the cuts might precipitate for the community. But I'm also keeping that in mind with the real information that came out of the verdict. So there are, I think he said, that Gordon had said for the month of June, or not for the month of June, for before June, they looked at something like 174 traffic citations that they would issue. And in June, they issued somewhere from, I think, between 10 and 20, because they no longer had 4 cruisers going around that could potentially give citations for traffic things. And I think traffic safety is really important. But the verdict and the allegations as a part of it talked about one officer who was involved in a vehicular, accident that, was fatal. And that person's no longer working with the department, but another person who is working with the department is credibly accused of driving while intoxicated. Like, that has not been addressed. I mean, I believe in, innocent until proven guilty, but it's an allegation. It should be investigated and addressed. I haven't seen that yet.
Thank you. That was the end of your time. Next, I have Jean Wall, and then I'm going to move to the folks that are remote.
I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time to talk about the pollution on the Lunt property. I've read all of the reports. I've attended, I'm sorry, I'm Jean Wall and I live in Countryside. I have read all of the reports. I've attended as many meetings as I possibly could, and I am convinced that there is severe pollution at the Lunt Street property. I have read the report from the current LSP, and I was very disappointed that they did not appear to believe that anything needed to be done there. So I'm just asking all of you members of the council to please work with the mayor to replace that LSP and have one that works for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Louise Amio, but I'm not sure if she is still in attendance. So I'm going to give her a second in case she's on the phone. Okay, I'm going to come back at the end in case she comes back. Next, I have Doug Selwyn. Doug Selwyn, I thought I saw you. Okay, I'm going to come back to the people who are remote. Next, I have Susan Wargaftic, and then after that will be Pamela Goodwin.
Thank you. My name is Susan Wargaftic. I live at 45 Forest Avenue. I'm here both representing myself as an abutter to the Lunt property, and I'm also a member of the Lunt Neighborhood Action. In July, we received the report that was written in response to the Department of Environmental Protection's audit of the Lunt property. The response was authored by Bruce Nicholson, who is a licensed site professional, under contract to 401 Liberty Street, which is the lessee of the property, and also representing the city of Greenfield, which is a problem in and of itself in that their needs are not the same. It was inadequate at best and dismissive of the concerns that the DEP presented at worst. As was noted by your council vote on this issue, we do not have any confidence in the work of Mr. Nicholson in regard to the cleanup of the site. During the last month, Glenn Ayers, one of our members, met with Mayor Wiedegartner and developed a tentative agreement with the mayor that she would be bringing a request to the city council for funding of somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 to cover the cost of an independent licensed site professional who would assist us, other Lunt area community members, and the Greenfield Health Department in getting a full picture of the contamination and how to clean it up. I wish the mayor were here. I'm sorry that she's not, but I'm here to urge her to submit this request for funding to the council in time for it to be considered at the September meeting, and to request that the council vote to support that expenditure at that meeting. The health of the treatment program residents and their staff and the residents of the neighborhood is at stake. This is serious business. We're talking about forever chemicals that are cancer-causing chemicals. This is not anything we should be avoiding dealing with. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Pamela Goodwin and then Dorothy McIver.
Hi, my name is Pamela Goodwin. I live at 54 High Street. And I'll just say I'm kind of shook up. I don't like these meetings much anymore, and they annoy me. I want to say I'm in full support of the police department. I also want them to look for grant money. I want them to be funded. I think it's really asking them to do nearly the impossible. I understand and was here at every meeting while people agonized about what to do, because the mayor is the one that has the clout, and you simply can either fund or not fund. I don't like the city government, to be blunt. I think we're still a small town. I also am full support and respect our Board of Health. They came into my place again recently. They were really wonderful, made a difference in my life personally, because I don't have air conditioning on a 104-degree day. And so they were, again, very helpful. As a member of the PIP for cleaning up the Lunt thing, we are once again wanting the mayor to do the right thing. I am tired of asking the mayor or that committee, the executive branch, to take some action. This has been an ongoing issue and a personal pain for me. I'm a survivor of 4 types of cancer. In 2016, I had melanoma and bladder cancer, and my urologist said to me, your bladder cancer was secondhand smoke. My brother smoked to the day he died. All of my relatives smoked my whole life, and if you talk to a lot of smokers, they'll say it's a myth. Secondhand smoke doesn't cause cancer. We all know that people die of lung cancer and they've never had a cigarette their entire life. So I really want to urge the city council, to urge the mayor. I know that the chief of staff did meet with Glenn. I'm hoping Glenn will speak. He's the expert on how toxic the water, the air, and everything else is over in that particular area. And we have kids playing baseball on that diamond. We have people living there. We have pregnant women trying to be in recovery, and it's not healthy. And I would love it if I could think that I live in a city where we care about each other, where we care about our safety, where we care about our health. And I've always lived that way. As a teacher for many years, a business owner, and a certified nurse assistant, I honor the fact that Counselor Disorder, spent her life in an ER. And the analogies of what's going on it's everywhere. Thank you for your time, and thank you how hard you work.
Thank you. Next, I have Dorothy McIver and then Dorothea Melnikoff.
Good evening, everyone. Dorothy McIver, 88 Columbus Ave. And I'm also here to talk about the Lunt property. I've been very concerned about this for a long time now, and that things should have happened years ago, and that people have been living in that building and working in that building, and the surrounding neighborhood, all the people have been having health risks because this has not been taken care of. And so I'll just be brief. I am pleased to hear that possibly the mayor is going to bring this to the council next month. And we expect that she's going to submit a budget to the council for an independent LSP, which we've been trying to have happen for a long time now, and that this will come up at the September meeting. And so I'm asking the council to support this request from the mayor, and that we need to have an independent LSP. It's totally just reprehensible that the current one is refusing to even comply with anything that the DEP has suggested that they need to do. They're just not taking any action at all. The response has been totally inadequate, and they need to go. And so I'm asking you to take action on this next month, and so that this can get underway and that this can get addressed and taken care of as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Dorothea Melnikoff and then Caroline Bruno.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the council.
I'm sorry, could you just give us your name and your address?
Yes. My name is Dorothea Melnikoff. I have two properties, one at 33 Norwood Street and one at 14 Kenwood Street. The Norwood Street, I believe, is on the more northern side, abutting the former Lunt Silversmith property. And the 14 Kenwood's on the more southern side. So I come here today because I'm concerned, of course. No one wants to find themselves in the middle of harm's way. I came up here to be a help. I've always loved New England. I returned here after working in Pennsylvania for 20 years to be a help to my children, to my daughter in particular, who's been teaching in this area for years. So I was able, after, working, saving up some money, to mortgage a home. I couldn't buy it outright, but mortgage a home at 33 Norwood, which I did in 2017. And my daughter was pregnant there. She had my grandson, who's now 4. Around 2020, the house across the way on Kenwood came up on the market, and it was I had just sold my house in Pennsylvania, and I was able to use that. So I have 2 mortgages, and for me, it was really the idea of investing in real estate and investing in a beautiful town like Greenfield, where I've come up to visit for years, and I've always thought about moving here. It was about a year ago. I was shocked to learn about what was going on abutting my homes. Not to belabor it, but my concerns extend beyond me. Of course, I'm 65 years old. I wanted to make life easier for my kids. I wanted to make it easier for my daughter in particular. Again, I now feel saddled, and I do tend to paint silver linings. I hope that we're wrong and that we can stand, before ourselves and say, no, really was, there is nothing there. But the problem is that the original people we were working with.
I'm sorry, that was your time. If you
Oh,
could
that's
just wrap
what
up
that
your
was.
thought. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
The original LSP was not sufficient. So we don't know the danger that we're living on. We don't know the parameters of the problem. There's inclinations that, okay, yes, it could be traveling north because of the utility lines. It's probably certainly traveling the other direction. So my concerns definitely extend all the way down to the river and all the way throughout the town. And I just think we need an independent LSP.
All right, thank you. I have to give
Thank
everyone
you.
the same Thank
you very much.
Next, I had Caroline Bruno, and then I'm going to go back and try the folks on Zoom.
Hello, I'm Caroline Bruno. I live on Peabody Lane. And I wanted to first thank counselors for taking seriously a lot of the conversation that's been coming to you all, when it's a conversation that obviously goes far beyond what council can do. And particularly for making space to bring more specifics of what has been happening with the police department. But it is really becoming clear that the nuanced issues that are being brought up require a different container for these conversations. The question and answer session today showed that. And so a proposal of a task force to hold conversations of what makes us feel safe, how we can support our neighbors, how we can support each other, and what the city can do is a much more fitting space for that conversation. And especially in this case where the extended discussion is between the police chief and the council, it's not getting every voice in the room for these really complicated issues and what needs to be considered. And I know from my experience working in some of the supporting food security in this area, I interact with a lot of the folks that the police chief and police department are interacting with as well, and serving them meals and chatting with them. And I'm worried that some of them won't be there this week. And I'm just hoping that there can be broader conversation, including more voices than a one-way discussion or question and answer session with the police chief and acting police chief to talk through this, especially because these crimes are recounting a list of people who, for all sorts of reasons, have needs that are not being met. And the picture of the police being so busy means that there's so many other ways that they can be supported. And a task force that interrogates what is going on, doing needs assessments for what people need, rather than criminalizing what's happening and having someone show up after the fact to intervene, isn't making us safer and isn't stopping the harm before it happens. So if we're all hoping for more choices and more opportunities for these conversations, I am hoping, and especially to some of the counselors who maybe haven't yet considered whether a task force like this could suit the needs of what you're wanting to support. I think the question and answer session tonight showed clearly that this conversation needs another venue, and that could be one of them. And it can go beyond what's possible for you to say yes or no to funding. That blunt force that was used to cut the police budget obviously has brought up a lot of complicated issues, and a solution is to explore those issues through far more options than just yes or no to funding. However, I hope you support funding the task force that will be brought up at the next meeting. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, I have Glenn Ayers.
Hi. Thank you very much for allowing public comments. My name is Glenn Ayers. I live at 254 Davis Street, and I'll try to be brief. Several people have mentioned the LUNT and the need for an independent LSP. And as a retired public health professional, I would like to advocate strongly that our Board of Health and Health Department in Greenfield needs to be working with a licensed site professional, an LSP. This is a very complicated matter. It is not something that a Board of Health or a health department routinely deals with, but in this case, they need to be supported by the community. They have an integral role to play in this, but we recently lost the chair of the Board of Health because she felt embarrassed that she was not able to get adequate information about the LUNT contamination. And I think that we need to support the Board of Health. We need to support our health department. And what we're really doing here is we're cleaning up a mess that was created by an industry that left without cleaning up their mess. And then it was made worse by our previous mayor who redeveloped that property before it was cleaned up adequately. And it's not Mayor Roxanne's fault. And so I think that she has the ability to address this issue because she knows what a disaster many of the departments in Greenfield were under the previous administration. For a time period, we had no health department at all. Everyone had quit under the previous mayor. And Mayor Roxanne has rebuilt our health department, but we need to support them. And so I hope that all the councilors will vote to approve an allocation of funding to hire an independent LSP that will work for the city, work with the PIP, the Public Involvement Plan Group, and with our Board of Health and Health Department to address this problem. And I'll leave it at that. I hope that you all will support this. And keep in mind that the Blunt Neighborhood Action Group will be applying for a grant. That money from DEP will likely not be available until next spring. And so we're asking the city to fund this interim time period. We're going to ask DEP for $20,000, and we will pick up the tab for that independent LSP as soon as we get that grant money from the DEP. Thank you very much. I know this is a long meeting, and I really appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you.
Perfect timing. I think we're going to go on recess, but first I'm going to check if there's anybody who wanted to sign up for public comment and wasn't able to. If you're on Zoom, you can put your name in the chat. Molly, are you trying to be recognized for public comment? I can see your hand raised on one screen, but not the other. Could you just unmute and just let me know yes or no if you'd like to speak? Maybe it was an accident. Okay. If no one else wants to speak a public comment, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. We don't have any public hearings, so we're going to take a quick recess. It's been a little over 2 hours now. And then we're going to move into motions, orders, and resolutions. 5 minutes. So this was Ways and Means. Councilor Forgy isn't here, so I'm going to ask Councilor Toronzo, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you please read
She asked how to read it.
the first, yes, on page 17, under motions,
Gotcha.
orders, and resolutions, the take from the table?
Okay. Order number FY 23-020. City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council take from the table order number FY 22-155. $175,000 be appropriated from Fund 8400 General Stabilization to fund an independent assessment audit of the City of Greenfield's Police Department's structure, policies, and practices. Areas to be covered include, but are not limited to, the following: organizational structure and governance, operating policies and procedures, department culture, hiring and promotional practices, professional standards and accountability, budgeting and planning, which was tabled at the July 20th, 2022 City Council meeting. Majority vote required.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're voting on now is whether or not to take it from the table. We're not voting on whether or not we're going to pass it.
Do we have a recommendation or anything?
I'm sorry?
Did Ways and Means talk about this at their meeting?
Yes.
Did you discuss this last night?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, and I'll ask for a report once we vote whether or not we're taking it off the table. Because if we leave it on the table, it's kind of a moot point. So, all in favor of taking it off the table, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm sorry, Councilor Mayo, were you opposed? I saw you late. You're in favor? Great. Any abstentions?
Agree that you would do it.
Okay, so now the motion is on the table. So now, if I could get a report from committee, whoever feels like they remember this. I didn't stay for the whole meeting last night.
Go for it.
Anyone from Ways and Means?
We took it from the table briefly, and the report from the committee is that this should stay on the table because we weren't ready to discuss it. There were some outliers on the task force and also on the audit. We wanted to bring them both together. So our recommendation was not to take it up right now, to leave it on the table.
Okay.
Off the
Well,
table.
since it's too late, do we?
That's why I was trying to say.
Yes, yes.
I want to know what the report was.
I don't think we
Okay, sorry
had a
about that.
different
A
response,
counselor
I
can
thought.
always make a motion to put it back on the table.
Move that we put it back on the table.
Great, do I have a second?
Second, Rickett?
Second.
All right.
Point of order. Are we putting it on the table or off the table?
We took it
Off.
back, we took it off of the table, but now we're changing our minds and we're putting it back on the table.
Point of order.
Yes.
It was, I have a different recollection than Jenny does of where we left this last night.
Go ahead.
I remember we
Is a
took,
motion to table debatable, though? I don't think that it is.
No.
Okay, a motion to table isn't debatable. We're gonna have to vote because we did get a second. If we want to leave it on the table, please vote yes. If you want to continue to discuss it, please vote no. Are people ready to vote?
Just do a roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes, a roll call would be good.
Vice President Gwynn,
Yes.
Counselor Disorder,
Yes.
Counselor Bottomley,
Yes?
Counselor Bullock,
Yes.
Counselor Lapinski,
Yes.
Counselor Mayo,
Yes.
Counselor Healy,
Yes.
Counselor Elmer,
Yes.
Counselor Ricketts, yes. Counselor Toronzo.
no.
The motion is tabled by majority.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have,
So am I reading the second half of that? I'm assuming the next order is below that.
Mayor's appointments.
yes, let's get that, and then, yeah, go ahead.
Or do I? Because we, it essentially became two different orders, right?
Well, I'm trying to bounce between the cover page of the agenda and then the backup. Okay, yeah, so next goes to A and O, because that other part
It's part of that
is
other
still
part.
part of the one that's on the table.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council pursuant to Charter Section 2-10 affirms the following appointment by the mayor to the Human Rights Commission, Mackenzie Siraj, for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Second, Ricketts?
All right, and this didn't go to committee, this came straight to us.
Correct.
So does anybody have any questions or comments on this appointment? Yes.
Will someone explain why it came straight to us?
A&O was canceled for this month, so it came straight to the full council.
Are there any repercussions of it not going through committee?
The only reason it would go through committee is if there are people who were concerned about this person's fitness for duty and wanted a chance to bring that to us. I haven't heard anything from anyone, unless anyone else has heard anything from anyone.
I received no communications from any counselor.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. And now, okay, now this is going back to Counselor Gwynn, and he is going to take us through almost the rest of the agenda.
Can I make a statement before I read this long list?
Yes, please.
I will tell you the same information. This project was a collation of information provided by the clerk's office, the council office, and individual counselors. They all submitted recommendations for changes to our rules of procedure. Some of those were ones that we have adopted, but they were still in their original form in the rules of procedure. Some were recommended changes. All the recommended changes that you see in the strike-through versions that you received are the ones that came through A&O and received either a unanimous positive recommendation or a positive recommendation, and they were changed on that situation. Anything that didn't receive a change order is not here because we made no changes. And so we moved forward, only the ones that were positively changed. And a lot of these you will see are maintenance, where we changed to meet our new charter or our new rules. And some were very good suggestions from counselors on ways that we can make meetings meet what we're doing or things that are needed within our rules.
Great. Does everybody understand? Any questions about the procedure?
And if I happen to go out of order, please stop me. I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 565-1, Rule 1, Organizations, Section A, Organizational Meeting as follows. The City Council shall meet for organization annually in January before the regular City Council meeting. Majority vote required.
Second, Disorder.
Explanation, as you see, it leaves it open for us to make the meeting and still follow the procedure to organize.
Great. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Mayo, and then Councilor Bullock.
Okay, so, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so isn't that an automatic standard, and isn't it already written that it's the first meeting that we have in January, or organizational meeting before we have a council meeting? Isn't that already in the charter?
Right, I understand. So there was one change where, this takes it away from the first business day in January and just says that it's going to be before the January meeting. But also a few years ago, there was a challenge saying that we would only have an organizational meeting right after an election, which creates automatic 2-year terms for president, vice president, and treasurer. And that's not what we had been following. So this codifies what we've been doing well, at least for as long as I've been on the council. And then gives some flexibility with that date. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, that makes sense to me, yes.
Okay, great. Councilor Bullock, did you have a question also?
I was just jumping the gun on approving.
Okay. All right, so any other questions or comments?
I request a roll call, since we have so many people on Zoom.
Great. So roll call vote.
Vice President Gwynn,
Yes.
Councilor Disorder,
Yes.
Councilor Bottomley,
Yes.
Councilor Bullock,
Yes.
Councilor Opiensky,
Yes.
Councilor Mayo,
Yes.
Councilor Healy,
Yes.
Councilor Elmer,
Yes.
Councilor Ricketts,
Yes.
Councilor Toronzo.
Yes.
Does the president wish to vote?
Yes and yes. All right. Next.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 565-1, Rule 1, Organizations, Section C, Election of Officers as follows. The City Council shall by majority vote of all the members present elect a president and vice president and any other officers deemed necessary. Charter 8.8, Section C.
I have a second.
Second, Ricketts.
Okay, so there is a typo in there. It should be Section B, not Section C. Other than that, are there any questions or comments? Okay, I do have one comment. I actually like having a treasurer because I remember there was a night when Vice President Gwynn wasn't able to attend because of travel, and I had to go use the restroom, and Counselor DeSorger had to sit in for me for a second. And I know that any counselor could just take the chair, but it is kind of nice to have like a pecking order in case. Maybe it's not the end of the world, but I like having that, because then you know who to default to if people are gone. Yes?
Would this take effect immediately or after the next annual election?
That's a good question, because we do have a treasurer currently. What would be your impression?
My impression would be, it would be on our new organizational change. Anything we're saying organizational change would be the next organizational change, not the present condition.
Yeah, I thought the treasurer, we're taking the treasurer out. I thought it was going to charter that way.
It is going to charter, and it's also a rule, it's a procedure of the finance department now, not council. So this is something that is going to be out of our hands. But right now, until we reorganize, we would still maintain the officers we have.
I see. Okay. And Kathy has Clerk Scott has suggested also that we could just put in a footnote saying that, we're going to run out our terms as they are, and then at the next organizational meeting, these changes will take effect.
Anything to do with the organizational portion, I agree.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I'm opposed. I want to keep the treasurer. Okay.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56-5-1, Rule 1, Organization by adding new Section F, Council Orientation as follows. All councilors should have a 1-hour orientation with the clerk's office and a 1-hour orientation with the financial director of their designee. 1 hour should be the minimum required for each of the 2 meetings and should occur by February 15th annually at the latest.
Second.
Disorder.
Thank you. So I think there's another typo in here because it should be financial director or their designee, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes,
Yeah.
Councilor Mayo.
Isn't that, when I first became a counselor, that was the understanding? I'm not sure if it was a rule, but I spent at least an hour with whoever the financial director was at the time, explaining what the procedures are and things of that nature. It was more than an hour breakdown of the financials of the city. And I'm not sure if I spent an hour with the city clerk, but I spent a lot of time with the city clerk going over, setting up my email, setting up, getting a Chromebook, getting, what the procedures are, that kind of thing. I'm sure it was close to an hour. It was all kind of part of the delivery system when you became a counselor. And I'm not sure if it was in the charter that it was there, but it felt to me like it was an automatic thing for new counselors coming on, that they have that kind of training.
Dan, did you want to take that?
Yeah, Councilor Mayo, you'll see throughout the evening, we're taking those thoughts and understanding and making them part of our rules of procedure, because a lot of those things were not in writing. They were implemented or done, but there was no procedural content. This is what we're trying to avoid.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Go ahead,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry, and then Councilor Ricketts.
No, let Councilor Ricketts go first. unless you don't want to.
No, I was just going to say that I understand Counselor Mayo. I don't know what happened, but ever since I've been on council, that happened every year too. And we had meetings with the financial, and we had meetings on how debts accrued and how to bring, what the debt ceiling was. And that did happen every year since I've been on council until last year. So, but yeah, it'll be nice that it's in writing for those people who missed it recently.
Yes, good.
So, I am in favor of these orientations taking place. I do not believe that we have the authority with the council rules to make them mandatory because it would be unenforceable. In other words, we cannot prevent a counselor from serving because they either can't or won't attend these orientations. So while I intend to attend these orientations anytime they are offered to me, I'm going to vote no on this measure.
All right, is there anyone else? Okay. All in favor?
Roll call, please, because we have a lot of people on
Yes,
Zoom.
a roll call. Vice President
Yes.
Quinn? Counselor Disorder?
Yes.
Counselor Bottomley?
Yes?
Counselor Bullock?
Yes.
Counselor Lapinski?
No.
Counselor Mayo?
Yes.
Counselor Healy?
Yes.
Counselor Elmer?
Yes.
Counselor Ricketts?
Yes.
Counselor Toronzo?
Yes.
Does the president wish to vote? Nope, I'm interested in saving the council some time. The motion passes by majority. Great. All right, next.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56.5-2, Rule 2, Meeting Section D, Quorum, to add the following language in bold. The presence of 7 members shall constitute a quorum for transaction of business. The affirmative vote of a majority vote of those present shall be required to adopt any ordinance or appropriation order unless otherwise provided by general law or by Charter Section 2-6B.
Second, Ricketts.
And this one's just housekeeping, I'm assuming, correct?
Correct. It has to do with the Charter Section correction on that piece.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Mayo?
Councilor Gwynn said councilors present. Does that, are we including the hybrid? Because, we do have the possibility and have the permission to do meetings in hybrid version. And I would hate to see that the people that are in hybrid now not have that option to vote, because you said councilors present.
Right, so that's addressed in Mass General Law already. So if you had 7 counselors present at a meeting, it's a quorum. I mean, that's, tied up in open meeting law, and also, the fact that we've got the hybrid meeting option that's available to us now during the pandemic. So I think that, regardless of whether they're in person, it still counts towards the quorum. The only difference would be when we're doing remote participation, but this doesn't affect that.
I'm just concerned, that, the word present, and, that they're physically present at the meeting, whereas 3 other counselors are not physically at the meeting tonight. There
Right.
are, if there was a sentence that said including hybrid or something of that nature, I would be acceptable to that. But the word present means it's too final to me to have that in that's just my opinion, that it sounds too final for the hybrid people not to be considered, or the possibility of them not to be considered.
So Vice President Gwynn, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is like the main gist of this is that you have to have a quorum to make changes.
It's making sure that there's a quorum. A quorum, the word present refers to answering to roll call. You say you're present, that's what you answer. Present, present, present. You're still, that's what it's, not present, but you know, some of us say here, some of us, like Councilor Ricketts, say present. That's what it refers to. And if I'm sure, I don't have it in front of me, but I imagine even with the charter changes that were sent to the legislature and went through the mayor, we addressed that portion this time about remote and such, and that might be in Charter Section 26B. So it is not a stumbling block because president is you've answered roll call, not here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you
Sure.
for explaining that.
Yeah, and I feel like where this comes up is if people leave the meeting, we can't vote in, you know, a bunch of changes without there being a quorum. Okay, yes.
I'm not going to dwell on this. I've spoken about this before. I don't think that while I agree with the legal definition, I don't think that we should be redefining the word present and changing the English language. And my only concern generally is that if we had less than 7 people in the room, which luckily we haven't yet, and something happened with the technology, which it has, then the meeting is just canceled, kibosh, from that moment
So
on.
that's irrelevant to what we're discussing here. Are there any questions on this change?
Yeah, the change is in bold, Section 2-6-B. That's the change.
Right, so it's that reference to that part of the charter.
Correct.
Great. All right. Are there any questions on that? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that was unanimous.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56-4, Rule 4, Voting Section B, vote to add the following language in bold. Vote. Every counselor present when the question is put shall vote yes, no, or abstain, with the exception of the president or presiding officer, who may vote on any item they so choose to or when required to break a tie vote.
Second, Ricketts.
Are there any questions?
It just puts us in compliance with Robert's rules.
Thank you. All right. Councilor Mayo, do you have your hand up because you want to ask a question about this, or was that from last time?
That was from last time.
Okay, good. All right. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that's unanimous.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56-5-7, Rule 7, Duties of the Clerk of the Council, Section F, Filing of Papers, as follows, with the strike-through language to be removed and the bold language to be added. Any order of resolution or other form of business to be presented to the council at its regular meeting for its action shall be submitted to the clerk of the council no later than 5 business days preceding the regular monthly committee chairs meeting.
Second, Ricketts.
All right, any questions on this one? Councilor Elmer, or
Yes?
I saw your box light up. Did you have a question on this one?
No.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56-5-7, Rule 7, Duties of the Clerk of the Council, Section G, Filing for Committee Documents, with strike-through language to be removed and bold language to be added. All documentation for City Council committees shall be submitted in the same manner as listed in Section F.
Second, Ricketts.
All right, this sounds like housekeeping. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Moving, okay, motion passes.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 565-8, Rule 8, Order and Disposition of Business, Section A, Agenda, subsection 1, to add 10 minutes time for communications with the mayor and superintendent of schools and school committee.
Second.
disorder.
All right, any questions on this one?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I have a typo. Superintendent is spelled wrong. Second, I think this is actually something that I proposed, but there's no supporting rationale, and I don't see anything in bold where the language is being changed, so I'm confused about what's on the paper.
It's new language, doesn't exist, so it's never been a rule of procedure, so it's an additional rule.
Okay, so where is the rule written on this order?
That text that's in capital letters right there is the rule, as it would be written in our rules of procedure.
Order and disposition of business, section A, subsection 1, to add 10 minutes time for communications.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing a rule that's articulated.
I'm also questioning the sentence, as
I mean,
Counselor.
This is based on what I had submitted, correct?
Correct.
So I could resubmit that language, but it's hard. I'm going to support this. I'm just confused as how we vote on something when the actual language isn't here.
Right, I'm reading this as, we might have to withdraw this piece until we get the proper language, only because it is supposed to say that they have 10 minutes to speak, total without, authorization from the chair or something like that, which is what it called for, so I'm not sure what happened to this piece.
Yeah, because
Actually, Clerk Scott has an answer for us.
So with permission from the president, it could be without objection, put to this order only, put to the September meeting, and we can clarify
Yes.
better. In a motion made what was intended from the A&O committee as proposed by Councilor Lapinski.
We could do that. I'd be fine with that. I'm also wondering if you were able to pull up the language and just read it to us, we could vote on that, yeah? Is that allowed?
I would,
So I do a lot of my reading before council meetings to make sure I don't miss anything, and, this one it's, a little deeper in the packet. I would like to see it and have some time to sit with it, because I thought I knew how I was voting on this one.
I would just say that this language is not as it should have appeared. So let's see where that happened, and we'll bring it forward next
Do
meeting.
we have to table it, or do we just?
No, we can just hold it until next
If there's
week.
no objection, it can just be put on the September agenda.
So then I'm going to go to Councilor Toronzo, then I'll ask for objections.
I was just wondering, was the intent of this to be 10 minutes between the three parties that are listed here, the mayor, the superintendent?
No.
Or each?
Each.
Yeah, the language clarifies that.
we never gave them a time before.
Yeah, the idea is to make those presentations that we aren't asking for, different than, like when the chief spoke to us tonight, that was at our request. We're not going to limit the chief to 10 minutes. But when they come before us, the mayor or the superintendent of schools or somebody else, that it's limited to 10 minutes because we want an update, not necessarily. If we start asking questions, that is not their 10 minutes, that's our time, and that's a bit different. But the idea was to simplify the agenda.
Yep, I'm voting against this, so.
Are we not,
We can't vote on it. 'cause
are we
don't-
not requesting them when we put them on the agenda as communications? Is that?
So I think the difference is if I ask a department head to please come and update us on a project,
Right.
it would be kind of tacky of me to say, oh, would you only have 10 minutes? If they ask to address us, then they have 10 minutes. Except I believe in Robert's rules, you are also able to vote to extend the time as long as we all want to do that.
I'm just asking because every agenda we have, I believe, so far has always had communication. It's like an agenda item is to have communications from the mayor, school department.
Point of order. Shouldn't we discuss this when the actual motion is before us?
Yeah, so I would like to say, if there are no objections, I think we can talk about this next month when we have the language in front of us. If there are objections, we can keep discussing it.
I don't have an objection, I just didn't want it to go a whole month and then have these questions come up, and then we have to put it off another month, which is why I was bringing this up.
No, I
now.
understand. And actually, let's go ahead and put it on chairs. That way, if we need to clarify anything, if there's a possibility it has to go back to A&O, we'll get our arms around it. Yes.
The way it's worded, it makes it seem like you're just adding 10 minutes to whatever time they had before.
This, yeah,
That's
this
not
isn't
it.
correct.
That's all it is.
No, Penny, that's not what it is.
So, I'm all set.
Okay.
I move to table it.
So, we don't have to table it as long as there are no objections. and I'm
Right.
not seeing objections.
So let's do that.
Moving on.
Yes.
Was there not a second?
None
We don't need a
needed.
second. I asked if there were any objections, and there weren't. There were some questions about how we were going to take it up. But it's going to go to committee chairs, and we're going to make sure that we've got a good handle on it.
Moving on.
Yes, please, to page
I
29.
move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56.5-8, Rule 8, Order and Disposition of Business, Section A, Agenda, subsection 3, to replace it in its entirety with the new language in bold as follows. During the time of meeting, the City Council shall, at 90-minute intervals, be scheduled to take a 5-minute recess. The recess shall be held after the question has been addressed and voted on.
Second, Ricketts.
Great. Are there any questions about this one? Yes.
I have another typo. To replace it in its entirety, the word it is missing, or it could also say to be replaced, but the current sentence is not grammatically correct.
Oh, yeah, I see that too.
I don't
Yep.
see that as needing an amendment, though.
No, it's just a typo, so we just make note of it, and now, if there are questions or comments,
Just to say 2 thumbs up.
great. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56.5-8, Rule 8, Order and Disposition of Business, Section D, items referred for administrative action, subsection 2E, to remove language with strike-through and add language in bold as follows. The clerk of the council will keep a list of pending matters which will be furnished to councilors by way of the committee chair's agenda.
Second.
All right, are there any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 56.5-9, Rule 9, Committees, Section B, Composition Charge, subsection 1, Ways and Means, to remove language with strike-through and add language in bold as follows. To consist of 5 members of the council to deal with all matters pertaining to expenditures, budget, tax classification, and other financial issues. The Ways and Means Committee shall hold all public hearings on the above matters unless otherwise provided for.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Great.
I move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 5659, Rule 9, Committees, Section B, Composition Charge, Subsection 4, Community Relations and Education, to remove language with strike-through and add language in bold as follows. Community Relations Committee, to consist of 5 members of the council to act as liaisons between city departments, commissions, and boards with a focus on quality of life issues in Greenfield. The Community Relations Committee will also provide a regular venue during meetings for communications with city departments on cultural and social aspects within the city. The Community Relations Committee shall promote ongoing communications between residents and city government, encourage residents' participation in city meetings, discuss proposed resolutions, and provide forums for interaction between council members and the public.
Second.
All right, any questions?
Wasn't sure if you were done.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a comment, which is that while I'm opposed to this specific name change, and I could give a reason why, not important right now, shouldn't we be just getting rid of this committee since it never meets and doesn't do anything?
Actually, the committee does meet, and we do things.
But it hasn't met since March.
We haven't met in a while because of some different conflicts that we've had. But that is besides the point. I'm still going to call it CRE, by the way, just so everyone knows. Nope, I'm calling it CRE because I'm stubborn.
So you can vote no then?
I'm not gonna hold it up over that. All right, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Roll call, please.
Roll call.
Vice President Gwynn.
Yes.
Counselor Disorder.
Yes.
Counselor Bottomley.
Yes.
Counselor Bullock.
Yes.
Counselor Lapiensky.
No.
Counselor Mayo.
Yes.
Counselor Healy.
Yes.
Counselor Elmer.
Yes.
Counselor Ricketts.
Yes.
Counselor Toronzo.
Yes.
Does the president wish to vote?
Yes, and I'll vote yes. The E stands for the RE in relations, by the way.
Motion passes by majority.
Okay.
I move
If
that it
that's
be-
the case, I actually want to change my vote to yes.
Okay.
I move that it be ordered that Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure 565-12, Rule 12, Public Participation, Section A, Conduct, Subsection 1, to replace language with strike-through to language in bold as follows. Any citizen or petitioner shall be limited to 3 minutes or another amount of time at the discretion of the presiding officer.
Second.
Oops, sorry. Okay, any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed because I don't think that we're doing this in the right way, but I don't feel like drawing it out.
Okay, any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. All right.
I believe that is my last change at this point in time.
Yeah, we're at the end. Okay. All right, presentation of petitions and similar papers. Report from committees. Well, no one met this month except for Ways and Means, and our Ways and Means chair isn't here, so we'll probably just do that next month. All right, unfinished business. I'm sorry.
Do I have to do first reading?
Okay, sorry, old business. All right, new business, we have a first reading. Can I get someone from Ways and Means to read this? Whoever wants to volunteer.
Go ahead.
Approval to repurpose $57,955.54 of previously authorized financial orders for parts and repair of transfer station doors. And appropriate $45,000 from Fund 8400 General Stabilization for establishment expenses of a public safety community task force.
All right, thank you. I have another first reading, if someone could read that. Yeah, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So next is expectations for committee work. So this is about our subcommittees that everybody has been assigned to. I know that there have been some changes, and I know that there are people who've had to, step back and step forward as family and medical issues have arisen. But I want to make it clear that the work on the city council happens at the subcommittee level. Vice President Gwynn and I have, tried to work with people who have a medical reason or a family reason why they can't serve. But as far as I'm concerned, if a counselor is not able to serve on a subcommittee because they don't feel like it, they are not doing their job as a city councilor.
Yes.
If there are any questions or comments, I want everyone to understand it's hard work. I know Ways and Means just got through a bear of a budget season. And I think that it really sets a bad precedent when we have people who are meeting. How many times did Ways and Means meet during budget season? I mean,
Every night.
There were
it was 2 or 3
There
times
were
a week.
11 extra just in April, I think,
Right.
and that didn't include March. I don't remember March.
That's a lot of extra work that, people are doing as, volunteers. And it's not fair to all the other counselors if one person is going to say, I'm just not going to do it. It's one thing if there's a family emergency, if there's a medical reason, if there are things that come up. But I am not accepting resignations unless it's for an emergency. Yes. Did you want to be recognized or were you?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to thank you, first of all, President Gilmore. I fully agree. So much hard work goes into the committee meetings. I jumped on to Ways and Means even last night, and they had lots of public there weighing in, and it's not just budget season. EDC can tell you the same. They've been going through long meetings on very important topics that the community has come out for. And I feel passionately that if somebody cannot be on committees, they need to step back and not be on council, because it isn't fair, and there are people out there who would like to serve on council. So I would just prefer to have somebody who wants to do the entire job and not doing bits and pieces, because I see some of these counselors on these meetings till 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they get up and go to work at 4 in the morning. So it's really a slap in the face for someone to say that these subcommittees are fake meetings. And so I first of all would love an apology about that whole thing, but I'm sure I'm not going to get it. But I do want some real consideration to go to whether people should be even allowed to stay on council if they're not going to go to any subcommittees at all.
Vice President Quinn.
I would like to just follow up on Councilor Ricketts' comments. The work of council is done at committee, and the committees work very hard. In the last 2 years of A&O, we have reviewed the code of Greenfield, we have reviewed the charter of Greenfield, and we have reviewed the rules of procedure, just in addition to the regular things that come up for appointments and those things that we do as maintenance items. Those 3 items are probably the most, they're the rules, they're the procedures, it's how we function as a municipality. If we had to go through every single one of those steps at this meeting because people don't participate in those meetings or understand them, the questions would go on forever. The non-understanding would be that much harder. Committees is where that physical work is done. When I come and I sit with someone like Ginny and she has the answers to when she was the chair of EDC or when she can go through what Ways and Means does, the hours they put in, I respect their opinions and what they put forward as their recommendations. I look at the recommendation of the committee as my first indication of the work that was put into it, and then I form my own opinion, but that's where it's done. And if we change that First, it's not fair to all the other counselors, because I would just love to walk into this meeting and do nothing else and just vote. But that's not how it goes. That's not what we signed up for. So I believe if you're going to be an active counselor, it means you have to participate in every level and everything that's asked of you.
Ms. Counselor Tronzo?
I would echo those thoughts completely, and add to it that the other part of the business that we do is answer emails or read emails. Yes, there are a lot of them out there. Not a lot of them are, I think, comments to us or, perceptions from the community, more so than really requiring a response. I mean, I typically won't respond to all the emails unless someone's directly asking me a question that doesn't seem like a rhetorical question. But it also is where we get information from our constituents. It's a newer form of communication that makes it easier and more accessible for the community to interact with us and tell us their thoughts on topics and concerns that are coming up. And it's very convenient in the way that we can look at those at an appropriate time that works for us. Because I'd tell you, if the emails that came through were in the form of phone calls, I would never hear what the community had to say, because I can't answer the phone all day at work, or whatever hour of the night that somebody wants to put out something for us to read. And so not only do the emails help with that, it also provides information for the subcommittees to be able to get the information necessary when it's discussed at subcommittee. And to definitely echo what Vice President Gwynn was saying is that, I gotta say that I before budget season happened, I kind of alluded to, especially already hearing how grueling that would be. And I really encouraged folks to at least attend, try to watch the recording, if not, or reach out and look at the information that was gonna come up during the full council meeting and ask questions ahead of time. Because what ended up happening, and there was even a couple times tonight, what ends up happening is questions that are already answered and addressed at the subcommittee level could quickly be answered with, hey, I saw this was on the agenda, what got talked about, rather than all of us having to extend the length of our meetings to discuss something that's already been asked and answered ahead of time. And I really agree with you on echoing, if there's not some real good reason or big question, I know it's hard to equate, as to what the topic to be discussed, like super passionate about, I tend to listen to the subcommittees because that's what they're there for. They've gone through all the weeds for us, and that's the point of the reports, is to thin it out, like you said, so we're not all here till 12:30 every third Wednesday of the month.
And I'd say it would actually be later than that. I was on the charter review process, and then I was on A&O when, that started. And those meetings, that was already, 2+ years in the making, and going through some of those over and over again. And I'm sure that Councilor Forgy felt my pain, where we were there at the beginning, and then people are asking questions about the work that we had already done. It is frustrating, but with the charter, I understand that was especially tedious.
And if you don't attend, you don't know.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, for those of you who are watching at home, I just want to make sure that you understand that this agenda item is a hit piece on me. I'm okay with that. The president and the vice president have been trying to get me off the council since I was elected, and this is probably not going to be effective in doing that.
Well, there you have it, folks.
Yes, and point of order.
Yes.
This is not a hit piece at all. If anything, to the public watching, and they didn't really have to because it was in the paper, That was a hit on the entire council, on the way that government works, when you basically stated that these were fake meetings and that you didn't want to come and you were not coming unless we were only going to be in person. I sat here so many times and listened to you say that you did not want to be on council, but nobody else ran, so you felt like you had to. Well, during your election, there was a write-in candidate. And even though you won, you could have said, you know what, thank you, everyone, but I'm not going to take it. I really didn't want it, and let that write-in person then take the seat. So I work so hard to be on this council. I love serving this community, and it's so difficult to do this work and have somebody like you be so rude to people at times. It's embarrassing, and I don't like it. And I want you to either work with all of us and be in it 100%, or please resign. Don't stay out of spite just because you think you're getting pushed out. Stay because you want to work 100%, and you want to do what the rest of us are doing. Because when you're not serving the community. You're not doing what your constituents want, and it's important. So you don't want to read email? Guess what? The rest of us are doing it. We're carrying you. You don't understand how much we're carrying you. You really owe us that much gratitude, because it's that hard, and it's that much work.
Okay, next I'm going to go to Counselor Bullock, and I do want to remind folks that, we're not supposed to be addressing each other directly. I understand why, but those are part of our rules.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I'm actually shocked we're even entertaining this conversation. That we wouldn't be expected as counselors to participate in council meetings and public forums that are related to council, is kind of shocking to me, and I'm shocked that we're coddling a potential counselor's outrage, tantrum, whatever it is that's happening about this. And, just personally, the irony of thinking that this is a hit piece when I actually had a hit piece on me in the newspaper from a counselor this month. So beyond committee meetings that are necessary to move this work forward, I think that there is a level of expectation for participating in city council meetings, of demonstrating respect and consideration to our citizens, and to the topics at hand that's necessary for this. And I just want to say that I appreciate my counselors who take that seriously and do the work every single month and every single day.
Okay, so moving on, I don't see other, I'm sorry, Vice President Gwynn, did you want to?
No, I have some more new
Okay,
business.
so moving on to, yes, good. Good.
Whereas the Greenfield City Council values diverse opinions but expects council members to conduct themselves in a manner that is consistent with their oath of office and their obligation to work to strengthen our city with other city councilors and officials, Councilor Lapiensky continues to use derogatory comments on the floor of the council and using his council title in publications, media, and other meetings representing his own opinion using the title while disrespecting and attacking other councilors and city employees. This behavior is unacceptable, and I move to censure Councilor Lapiensky immediately with the expectation that this conduct will cease.
Second, disorder.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yes?
Utilizing this office to grandstand is not serving the role that we took the oath to uphold. And in tandem with that, I would also like to encourage members of the media to not report in such a way that the role of a counselor grandstanding is by any means the will of the council or representative of the council, and instead, if it's not, and it's a vast minority, then it probably doesn't even need to be said. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell someone how to report really, but just a suggestion. That's all.
Counselor Healy.
I'd just like to say, we're here to be professionals, treat each other with respect, and sitting here reading the newspaper like I do and seeing everything I saw brought me back to when the Human Rights Commissioner was in here and saying, we need to treat each other better, right? Have the respect for each other. You don't have to agree with me, I don't have to agree with you, but we have to come to some sort of compromising conclusion for our constituents. And bickering at the table isn't resolving anything. Calling a counselor out for their beliefs isn't doing anything. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but you have to be professional about it. And we're all professionals here, we're all adults, this isn't middle school. That article hurt me, and it wasn't even about me, right? And I just like to say, I'm not gonna mention names, but I think you're courageous, I think what you did was awesome. Keep at it. And that was going somewhere that way.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Roll call?
Okay.
Vice President Gwynn,
Yes.
Counselor DeSorger,
Yes.
Counselor Bottomley,
Yes.
Counselor Bullock,
I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Counselor Lapinski,
Abstain.
Counselor Mayo,
Yes.
Counselor Healy,
Yes.
Counselor Elmer,
Yes.
Counselor Ricketts,
Yes.
Counselor Toronzo.
Yes.
Does the president wish to vote?
Yes.
The motion passes by majority with 2 abstentions.
Okay. Do we have any motions for reconsideration? In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
Great. All right. I will see you folks later.
9:51 p.m.